G'day. Thanks for dropping by. I know I didn't give like the half-hour pre-notice that most people do when they go live, but that's cool because I don't necessarily go live for the sake of going live. I'm only doing so because now my fucking phone is playing the fuck up, and I can no longer live upstream from it. But I do like to record the odd video here and there on my phone, whether it be while I'm watching the moon rise or sunset or whatever it may be. But this afternoon, today being Saturday of the long weekend, I wonder if the date will show. It's probably about the 20th, as I suspected, 20th of April 2019. Our days are getting shorter and shorter. And because it's the middle of a long weekend, I just thought I'd pull out my guitar, this little fella here, and bang out a few songs. And I just thought maybe I'd like to record one or two of them on my phone, as I usually do. But because the phone itself was playing up because of memory issues, I deleted every file, I uploaded it onto this laptopy thingy, and because I didn't want to automatically delete, I just went through and manually deleted everything off that phone. And so then I thought, well, cool, I can sit and play a few songs. I'll record them one at a time just to see how they turn out. And in each and every case, the phone itself bloody crashed. I was like, okay, I restarted. Sang another song, recorded it, phone crashed. I mean, I'd love to be able to play live on this laptop, but the last experience I had of doing that showed that the audio quality sucks. So what's the point of playing and singing if the audio quality doesn't come through? So yeah, this laptop does not have a microphone jack. What can I do? So I use my phone for recording songs that I normally play. Today, well, as I say, it's Easter Saturday. Oh, I see I haven't had a viewer there for a moment. I think there might still be one left. It does show whether there's viewers or not. Anyway, since I can't sit and play music as I'd prefer to be doing, what I've actually done is prepared a book earlier. I know. It's Easter, and, I am flat earth Aussie Jesus. So I thought, well, why not then read from the Aquarian Gospel of Jesus the Christ? So people who have been following my channel will know that I have read already the introduction of this book. Hang on, let's go back one page there. I don't know if that'll show up. I'll see if I can get it in the right light. And I'll read it as well. It says, the Aquarian Gospel of Jesus the Christ, the philosophic and practical basis of the religion of the Aquarian age of the world, transcribed from the Akashic records by Levi. So to me, that's pretty interesting. As I said, I've read through the introduction once before. You can find that on my channel. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to start from the very, very start, from chapter 1, section 1, I should say. Doesn't even say chapter. I'll prove it. It's section 1. Hopefully that comes through clearly and isn't back to front as it appears on my camera. Section 1 Aleph. Birth and early life of Mary, mother of Jesus. So I'm going to read a few chapters till I reach a certain part, and then I'm going to skip through because it's the Easter weekend, and I'll maybe look through the index. Yes, it has an index to see if I get to the part of the crucifixion and the resurrection. But it's always good to start at the beginning. So as I say, introduction is already live recorded on my channel. Just look up the Aquarian Gospel of Jesus the Christ. Introduction. So for those who are following along with me, here we go. Chapter 1. Palestine, birth of Mary, Joachim's feast. Mary is blessed by the priests, his prophecy. Mary abides in the temple, is betrothed to Joseph. Augustus Caesar reigned, and Herod Antipas was ruler of Jerusalem. 3 provinces comprised the land of Palestine: Judea and Samaria and Galilee. Joachim was a master of the Jewish law, a man of wealth. He lived in Nazareth of Galilee, and Anna of the tribe of Judah was his wife. To them was born a child, a goodly female child, and they were glad, and Mary was the name they gave the child. Joachim, spelled with a J, but for some reason I want to say it with yeah, Joachim, or Joachim, if you're going to pronounce it in English. Joachim made a feast in honor of the child, but he invited not the rich, the honored, and the great. He called the poor, the halt, the lame, the blind, and to each one he gave a gift of raiment, food, or other needful thing. He said, "The Lord has given me this wealth. I am his steward by his grace. If I give not to his children when in need, then he will make this wealth a curse." Now, when the child was 3 years old, her parents took her to Jerusalem, and in the temple she received the blessings of the priests. The high priest was a prophet and a seer, and when he saw the child, he said, "Behold, this child will be the mother of an honored prophet and a master of the law. She shall abide within this holy temple of the Lord." And Mary did abide within the temple of the Lord, and Hillel, chief of the Sanhedrin, taught her all the precepts of the Jews, and she delighted in the law of God. When Mary reached the age of womanhood, she was betrothed to Joseph, son of Jacob, and a carpenter of Nazareth. And Joseph was an upright man and a devotee. Essene. Section 2. Beth. Birth and infancy of John the Harbinger and of Jesus. Chapter 2. Zacharias and Elizabeth. Prophetic messages of Gabriel to Zacharias, Elizabeth and Mary. Birth of John. Prophecy of Zacharias. Near Hebron in the hills of Judah, Zacharias and Elizabeth abode. They were devout and just, and every day they read the law, the prophets and the Psalms, which told of one to come, strong to redeem, and they were waiting for the king. Now, Zacharias was a priest, and in his turn he led the temple service in Jerusalem. It came to pass, as Zacharias stood before the Lord and burned the incense in the holy place, that Gabriel came and stood before his face. And Zacharias was afraid. He thought that some great evil was about to come upon the Jews. But Gabriel said, "O man of God, fear not. I bring to you and all the world a message of goodwill and peace on earth. Behold, the Prince of Peace, the King you seek, will quickly come. Your wife will bear to you a son, a holy son, of whom the prophet wrote, Behold, I send Elijah unto you again before the coming of the Lord, and he will level down the hills and fill the valleys up, and pave the way for him who shall redeem. From the beginning of the age your son has borne the name of John, the mercy of the Lord. His name is John. He will be honored in the sight of God, and he will drink no wine, and from his birth he will be filled with holy breath." And Gabriel stood before Elizabeth as she was in the silence in her home, and she told all the words that he had said to Zacharias in Jerusalem. When he had done the service of his course, the priest went home, and with Elizabeth rejoiced. 5 months passed by, and Gabriel came to Mary in her home, and that in Nazareth, and said, "Hail, Mary, hail! Once blessed in the name of God, twice blessed in the name of holy breath, thrice blessed in the name of Christ. for you are worthy, and you will bear a son who shall be called Emmanuel. His name is Jesus, for he saves his people from his sins. When Joseph's daily task was done, he came, and Mary told him all the words that Gabriel had spoke to her, and they rejoiced, for they believed that he, the man of God, had spoken words of truth. And Mary went with haste to tell Elizabeth about the promises of Gabriel. Together they rejoiced. And in the home of Zacharias and Elizabeth did Mary tarry 90 days. Then she returned to Nazareth. To Zacharias and Elizabeth a son was born, and Zacharias said, Most blessed be the name of God, for he has opened up the fount of blessings for his people, Israel. His promises are verified, for he has brought to pass the words which holy prophets spoke in olden times. And Zacharias looked upon the infant John and said, You will be called the prophet of the Holy One, and you will go before his face and will prepare his way. You will give a knowledge of salvation unto Israel, and you will preach the gospel of repentance and the blotting out of sins. Behold, for soon the day star from on high will visit us, to light the way for those who sit within the darkness of the shadow land, and guide our feet unto the ways of peace. Hello, Major Flat D. Nice to see you. Hope well. Just reading from the Aquarian Gospel. As I said in my intro, you may not have been here. I'm just reading from the very first chapter until I reach a certain point that satisfies me. That we know for a fact that Jesus was actually blonde-haired and blue-eyed, which set him apart from the people of his time. And then I'm going to jump forward to, by reading through the index, the part of the Easter message, the crucifixion and the resurrection. So now I'm up to what's called chapter 3 in section 2. The birth of Jesus. Masters honour the child, the shepherds rejoice. Zacharias and Elizabeth visit Mary. Jesus is circumcised. The time was nearly due for Jesus to be born. Mary longed to see Elizabeth, and she and Joseph turned their faces towards the Judean hills. And when upon their way they came to Bethlehem, the day was done, and they must tarry for the night. But Bethlehem was thronged with people going to Jerusalem. The inns and homes were filled with guests, and Joseph and his wife could find no place to rest but in a cave where animals were kept, and there they slept. At midnight came a cry, The child is born in yonder cave amongst the beasts, and lo, the promised Son of Man was born. And strangers took the little one and wrapped him in the dainty robes that Mary had prepared, and laid him in a trough from which the beasts of burden fed. 3 persons clad in snow-white robes came in and stood before the child and said, All strength, all wisdom, and all love be yours, Emmanuel. Now, on the hills of Bethlehem were many flocks of sheep with shepherds guarding them. The shepherds were devout, were men of prayer, and they were waiting for a strong deliverer to come. And when the child of promise came, a man in snow-white robe appeared to them, and they fell back in fear. The man stood forth and said, Fear not. Behold, I bring you joyful news. At midnight in a cave in Bethlehem was born the prophet and the king that you have long been waiting for. And then the shepherds all were glad. They felt that all the hills were filled with messengers of light who said, All glory be to God on high, peace on earth, goodwill to all men. And then the shepherds came with haste to Bethlehem and to the cave, that they might see and honour him whom men had called Emmanuel. Now when the morning came, a shepherdess whose home was near prepared a room for Mary, Joseph, and the child, and here they tarried many days. And Joseph sent a messenger in haste to Zacharias and Elizabeth to say, The child is born in Bethlehem. And Zacharias and Elizabeth took John and came to Bethlehem with words of cheer. And Mary and Elizabeth recounted all the wondrous things that had transpired. The people joined with them in praising God. According to the custom of the Jews, the child was circumcised. And when they asked, What will you call the child? The mother said, His name is Jesus, as the man of God declared. Chapter 4. The consecration of Jesus. Mary offers sacrifices. Simeon and Anna prophecy. Anna is rebuked for worshipping the child. The family returns to Bethlehem. Now, Mary took her son when he was 40 days of age up to the temple in Jerusalem, and he was consecrated by the priest. And then she offered purifying sacrifices for herself, according to the custom of the Jews, a lamb and 2 young turtle doves. A pious Jew named Simeon was in the temple serving God. From early youth he had been looking for Emmanuel to come, and he had prayed to God that he might not depart until his eyes had seen Messiah in the flesh. And when he saw the infant Jesus, he rejoiced and said, I now am ready to depart in peace, for I have seen the King. Then he took the infant in his arms and said, Behold, this child will bring a sword upon my people, Israel, and all the world, but he will break the sword, and then the nations will learn war no more. The Master's cross I see upon the forehead of this child, and he will conquer by this sign. And in the temple was a widow, 84 years of age, and she departed not, but night and day she worshipped God. And when she saw the infant Jesus, she exclaimed, Behold Emmanuel, behind the signet cross of the Messiah on his brow. And then the woman knelt to worship him, as God with us, Emmanuel. But one, a master, clothed in white, appeared, and said, Good woman, stay. Take heed to what you do. You may not worship man. This is idolatry. This child is man, the Son of Man, and worthy of all praise. You shall adore and worship God. Him only shall you serve. The woman rose and bowed her head in thankfulness and worshipped God. And Mary took the infant Jesus and returned to Bethlehem. Chapter 5. 3 Magi and priests honor Jesus. Herod is alarmed, calls a council of the Jews, is told that prophets had foretold the coming of a king. Herod resolves to kill the child. Mary and Joseph take Jesus and flee into Egypt. Just take a quick. I thought that somebody was talking there. I have a psychic sense. That's a bummer, Major Flat D. I'm really sorry to hear that, but it happened to me too. I'm not going to talk about that right now, but I remember I was fully awake and aware of my own birth and subsequently through my own circumcision. And that's why my son was not circumcised, because why would you inflict such a terrible, terrible, painful infliction upon an innocent baby, an innocent child? That made me grow up very bitter, actually. The memory of that, the owners of the voices, my mother and my father, the 2 voices I remember so well, and I thought just loved me unconditionally. They were the ones pinning my arms down. That doctor cut me, abused me before I even had a chance to do it for myself. Yeah. Please do not circumcise your children any further. Unfortunately for Jesus, he was also born in that age where that was his tradition in his culture. I also wouldn't be surprised if my daughters also got vaccinated once they were beyond my control, once they're living with their mother. That sort of stuff's beyond my control, but at least in their early years, they were vaccinated. I'll go back to chapter 5 now. Might have to pull this light a little bit closer. It's a bit dark. Oh, that's better. Yeah, I read that bit. 3 Magi and priests honor Jesus. Let's go straight into it. Beyond the river Euphrates, the Magians lived, and they were wise, could read the language of the stars, and they divined that one, a master soul, was born, and they saw his star above Jerusalem. And there were 3 among the Magian priests who longed to see the master of the coming age, and they took costly gifts and hastened to the west in search of him, the newborn king, that they might honor him. And one took gold, the symbol of nobility, another myrrh, the symbol of dominion and power. Gumthus, the other took, the symbol of the wisdom of the sage. I'll just interject right here, right now. Gumthus. You don't see that in the actual Bible at all, but it is in this one, the Aquarian Gospel. And to me, gumthus is hash, the resin of the cannabis plant. And as they say, the symbol of the wisdom of the sage. I will go on record to say that. Now, when the Magians reached Jerusalem, the people were amazed and wondered who they were and why they came. And when they asked, "Where is the child who has been born a king?" the very throne of Herod seemed to shake. And Herod sent a courtier forth to bring the Magians to his court. And when they came, they asked again, "Where is the newborn king?" And then they said, "While yet beyond the Euphrates we saw his star rise, and we have come to honour him." And Herod blanched with fear. He thought perhaps the priests were plotting to restore the kingdom of the Jews, and so he said within himself, "I will know more about this child that has been born a king." And so he told the Magian priests to tarry in the city for a while, and he would tell them all about the king. He called in council all the Jewish masters of the law and asked, "What have the Jewish prophets said concerning such a one?" The Jewish masters answered him and said, "The prophets long ago foretold that one would come to rule the tribes of Israel, that this Messiah would be born in Bethlehem." They said, the prophet Micah wrote, "O Bethlehem, Judea, a little place among the Judean hills, yet out of you will one come forth to rule my people, Israel, yea, one who lived in olden times, in very ancient days." Then Herod called the Magian priests again and told them what the masters of the Jewish law had said, and then he sent them on the way to Bethlehem. He said, "Go search, and if you find the child that has been born a king, return and tell me all, that I may go and honour him." The Magians went their way and found the child with Mary in the shepherd's home. They honoured him, bestowed upon him precious gifts, and gave him gold, gumthus, and myrrh. These Magian priests could read the hearts of men. They read the wickedness of Herod's heart, and they knew that he had sworn to kill the newborn king. And so they told the secret to the parents of the child and bid them flee beyond the reach of harm. And then the priests went on their homeward way. They went not through Jerusalem. And Joseph took the infant Jesus and his mother in the night and fled to Egypt land, and with Elihu and Salome in ancient Zoan they abode. Chapter 6, Herod learns of the supposed mission of John, the infants of Bethlehem, and massacred by Herod's order. Elizabeth escapes with John because Zacharias cannot tell him where his son is hidden. He is murdered. Herod dies. Now, when the Magian priests did not return to tell him of the child that had been born a king, the king Herod was enraged. And then his courtiers told him of another child in Bethlehem, one born to go before and to prepare the people to receive the king. This angered more and more the king. He called his guards and bid them to go to Bethlehem and slay the infant John, as well as Jesus, who was born to be the king. He said, "Let no mistake be made, and that ye may be sure to slay these claimants to my throne. Slay all male children in the town not yet 2 years of age." The guards went forth and did as Herod bade them do. Elizabeth knew not that Herod sought to save her son, and she and John were yet in Bethlehem. But when she knew, she took the infant John and hastened to the hills. The murderous guards were near. They pressed upon her hard, but then she knew the secret caves in all the hills, and into one she ran and hid herself and John until the guards were gone. Their cruel task was done. The guards returned and told the story to the king. They said, "We know that we have slain the infant king, but John, his harbinger, we could not find." The king was angry with his guards because they failed to slay the infant John and sent them to the tower in chains. And other guards were sent to Zacharias, father of the harbinger, while he was serving in the holy place, to say, "The king demands that you shall tell where is your son." But Zacharias did not know, and he replied, "I am a minister of God, a servant of the holy place. How could I know where they have taken him?" And when the guards returned and told the king what Zacharias said, he was enraged and said, "My guards, go back and tell that wily priest that he is in my hands, that if he does not tell me the truth, does not reveal the hiding place of John, his son then shall die." The guards went back and told the priest just what the king had said. And Zacharias said, "I can but give my life for truth, and if the king does shed my blood, the Lord will save my soul." The guards again returned and told the king what Zacharias said. Now Zacharias stood before the altar in the holy place, engaged in prayer. A guard approached and with a dagger thrust him through. He fell and died before the curtain of the sanctuary of the Lord. And when the hour of salutation came, for Zacharias daily blessed the priests, he did not come. And after waiting long, the priest went to the holy place and found the body of the dead. And there was grief, deep grief, in all the land. Now Herod sat upon his throne. He did not seem to move. His courtiers came. The king was dead. His son reigned in his stead. Yeah, I hear you, Major Flapjack. But hey, you can't cry over spilt milk, can you? You just have to move on and try and do no further harm. That's basically always been my attitude. Shit happens. But once it's happened, what can you do? I'm going to keep reading. Section 3, Gmail with a G. I'll put that up on camera just in case it's not clear. Hopefully that showed. Education of Mary and Elizabeth in Zone. Chapter 7. Archelaus. I think that's it. Archelaus reigns. Mary and Elizabeth with their sons are in Zone and are taught by Elihu and Salome. Elihu's introductory lesson tells of an interpreter. The son of Herod, Archelaus, reigned in Jerusalem. He was a selfish, cruel king. He put to death all those who did not honor him. He called in council all the wisest men and asked about the infant claimant to his throne. The council said that John and Jesus both were dead. Then he was satisfied. Now Joseph, Mary, and their son were down in Egypt in Zoan, and John was with his mother in the Judean hills. Elihu and Salome sent messengers in haste to find Elizabeth and John. Pardon me. That's probably where the pause button works. And found them when they brought to Zoan. Now Mary and Elizabeth were marveling much because of their deliverance. Elihu said, "It is not strange, there are no happenings. Law governs all events. From olden times it was ordained that you should be with us, and in this sacred school he taught." Elihu and Salome took Mary and Elizabeth out to the sacred grove nearby where they were wont to teach. Elihu said to Mary and Elizabeth, "You may esteem yourselves thrice blessed, for you are chosen mothers of long-promised sons, who are ordained to lay in solid rock a sure foundation stone on which the temple of the perfect man shall rest, a temple that shall never be destroyed. We measure time by cycle ages, and the gate to every age we deem a milestone in the journey of the race. An age has passed, the gate unto another age flies open at the touch of time. This is the preparation age of soul, the kingdom of Emmanuel, the God in man. And those, your sons, will be the first to teach the news and preach the gospel of goodwill to men and peace on earth. A mighty work is theirs, for carnal men want not the light, they love the dark, and when the light shines in the dark, they comprehend it not. We call these sons revealers of the light, but they must have the light before they can reveal the light. And you must teach your sons and set their souls on fire with love and holy zeal, and make them conscious of their missions to the sons of men. Teach them that God and man were one, and that through carnal thoughts and words and deeds, man tore himself away from God, debased himself. Teach that the holy breath would make them one again, restoring harmony and peace, that naught can make them one but love, that God so loved the world that he has clothed his Son in flesh that man may comprehend. The only Saviour of the world is love, and Jesus, Son of Mary, comes to manifest that love to men. Now, love cannot be manifest until its way has been prepared, and naught can rend the rocks and bring down lofty hills and fill the valleys up, and thus prepare the way, but purity. But purity in life men do not comprehend, and so it too must come in flesh. And you, Elizabeth, are blessed because your son is purity made flesh, and he shall pave the way for love. This age will comprehend but little of the works of purity and love, but not a word is lost. For in the book of God's remembrance, a registry is made of every thought and word and deed. And when the world is ready to receive, lo, God will send a messenger to open up the book and copy from its sacred pages all the messages of purity and love. Then every man of earth will read the words of life in language of his native land, and men will see the light, walk in the light, and be the light. And man again will be one with God. Chapter 8. Elihu's lessons. The unity of life. The two selves. The devil. Love, the saviour of men. The David of the life. Goliath. Again, Elihu met his pupils in the sacred grove and said, no man lives unto himself, for every living thing is bound by cords to every other living thing. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will love and not demand love in return. They will not do to other men what they would not have other men do unto them. There are two selves, the higher and the lower self. The higher self is human spirit clothed with soul, made in the form of God. The lower self, the carnal self, the body of desires, is a reflection of the higher self, distorted by the murky ethos of the flesh. The lower self is an illusion and will pass away. The higher self is God in man and will not pass away. The higher self is the embodiment of truth. The lower self is truth reversed, and so is falsehood manifest. The higher self is justice, mercy, love, and right. The lower self is what the highest self is not. The lower self breeds hatred, slander, lewdness, murders, theft, and everything that harms. The higher self is mother of the virtues and the harmonies of life. The lower self is rich in promises, but poor in blessedness and peace. It offers pleasure, joy, and satisfying gains, but gives unrest and misery and death. It gives men apples that are lovely to the eye and pleasant to the smell. Their cores are full of bitterness and gall. If you would ask me what to study, I would say, yourselves. And when you have well studied them, then you would ask me what to study next, I would reply, yourselves. He who knows well his lower self knows the illusions of the world, knows of the things that pass away. And he who knows his higher self knows God, knows well the things that cannot pass away. Thrice blessed is the man who has made purity and love his very own. He has been ransomed from the perils of the lower self and is himself his higher self. Men seek salvation from an evil that they deem a living monster of the nether world, and they have gods that are but demons in disguise, all powerful, yet full of jealousy and hate and lust, whose favours must be bought with costly sacrifice of fruits and of the lives of birds and animals and humankind. And yet these gods possess no ears to hear, no eyes to see, no heart to sympathize, no power to save. This evil is a myth. These gods are made of air and clothed with shadows of a thought. The only devil from which men must be redeemed is self, the lowest self. If man would find his devil, he must look within. His name is self. If man would find his saviour, he must look within. And when the demon self has been dethroned, the saviour, love, will be exalted to the throne of power. The David of the light is purity, who slays the strong Goliath of the dark, and seats the Saviour, love, upon the throne. Chapter 9. Salome's lessons, the man and the woman, philosophy of human moods, the triune God, the septimate, the God Tao. Salome taught the lessons of the day. She said, all times are not alike. Today the words of man may have the greatest power. Tomorrow woman teaches best. In all the ways of life, the man and woman should walk hand in hand. The one without the other is but half. Each has a work to do. But all things teach. Each has a time and season for its own. The sun, the moon have lessons of their own for men, but each one teaches at the appointed time. The lessons of the sun fall down on human hearts like withered leaves upon a stream, if given in the season of the moon, and so if the lessons of the moon and all the stars. Today one walks in gloom, downhearted and oppressed. Tomorrow the same one is filled with joy. Today the heavens seem full of blessedness and hope. Tomorrow hope is fled, and every plan and purpose comes to naught. Today one wants to curse the very ground on which he treads. Tomorrow he is full of love and praise. Today one hates and scorns and envies and is jealous of the child he loves. Tomorrow he is risen above his carnal self and breathes forth gladness and goodwill. 1,000 times men wonder why these heights and depths, these light hearts and these sad, are found in every life. They do not know that there are teachers everywhere, each busy with the God-appointed task and driving home to human hearts the truth. But this is true, and everyone receives his lessons that he needs. And Mary said, "Today I'm in exultation great. My thoughts and all my life seem lifted up. Why am I thus inspired?" Salome replied, "This is a day of exultation, day of worship and of praise, a day when in a measure we may comprehend our Father God. Then let us study God, the one, the three, the seven. Before the worlds were formed, all things were one. Just spirit, universal breath. And spirit breathed, and that which was not manifest became the fire and thoughts of heaven, the Father God, the Mother God. And when the fire and thoughts of heaven in union breathed, their Son, their only Son, was born. This Son is love, whom men have called the Christ. Men call the thought of heaven the holy breath. And when the triune God breathed forth, lo, 7 spirits stood before the throne. These are the Elohim, creative spirits of the universe. And these are they who said, "Let us make man, and in their image man was made." In early ages of the world, the dwellers of the farther east said, Tao is the name of the universal breath. In the ancient books we read, no manifesting form has Tao great, and yet he made and keeps the heavens and earth. No passion has our Tao great, and yet he causes sun and moon and all our stars to rise and set. No name has Tao great, and yet he makes all things to grow. He brings in season both the seed time and the harvest time. And Tao great was one. The one became the two became the three evolved the 7, which filled the universe with manifests. And Tao great gives unto all, the evil and the good, the rain, the dew, the sunshine, and the flowers. From his rich stores he feeds them all. And in the same old book we read of man. He has a spirit knit to Tao great, a soul which lives within the 7 breaths of Tao great, a body of desires that springs up from the soil of flesh. Now spirit loves the pure, the good, the true. The body of desires extols the selfish self. The soul becomes the battleground between the two. And blessed is the man whose spirit is triumphant and whose lower self is purified, whose soul is cleansed, becoming fit to be the council chamber of the manifests of Tao great. Thus closes the lesson of Salome. Oh, I've got a few more comments. Wobble-dubla. G'day, mate. I'm just reading from the book because it is Easter Saturday, and there's my mouse down here. 5:51 p.m. Saturday evening, 20th of April. I'm just going to keep reading, as is my intention. So thanks for commenting, those who do. I will try and address comments later on. For now, I'm just still reading and, lubricating my throat. should have bought a second one since I'm going to be here for a while. Find yourself swimming in waters you don't get along with. It's all good, Major D. All I can say is just keep an open mind to everything that comes along, and don't believe anything as gospel. I mean, even though this is a gospel as such, you just take it in with an open mind and you just plant it. You know, your mind is a field, and if it's a fertile field, that means that it can accept any seed from anywhere, and you just see which ones bear fruit. So that's basically my attitude. Anything and everything. I'll listen to anybody's philosophy. If they've got a good philosophy, I'll contemplate it. I'll plant seed. I'll see where it goes from there. So chapter 10 now, Elihu's lessons. The Brahmic religion, life of Abram, Jewish sacred books, the Persian religion. Elihu taught. He said, in ancient times, the people of the East were worshippers of God, the one whom they called Brahm. Their laws were just, they lived in peace, they saw the light within, they walked in wisdom's ways. But priests with carnal aims arose, who changed the laws to suit the carnal mind, bound heavy burdens on the poor, and scorned the rules of right, and so the Brahms became corrupt. But in the darkness of the age, a few great masters stood unmoved. They loved the name of Brahm. They were light beacons. They were great beacons, lights before the world. And they preserved inviolate the wisdom of their holy Brahm. And you may read this wisdom in their sacred books. And in Chaldea, Brahm was known. A pious Brahm named Terah lived in Ur. His son was so devoted to the Brahmic faith that he was called Abraham, and he was set apart to be the father of the Hebrew race. Now, Terah took his wife and sons and all his flocks and herds to Haran in the west, where Terah died. And Abraham took the flocks and herds and with his kindred journeyed further west. When he reached the oaks of Morah in the land of Canaan, he pitched his tents and there abode. A famine swept the land, and Abram took his kindred and his flocks and herds and came to Egypt, and in these fertile plains of Zoan pitched his tent and here abode. Our men still mark the place where Abram lived across the plain. You ask why Abram came to Egypt land? This is the cradle land of the initiate, and all secret things belong to Egypt land, and this is why the masters come. In Zoan, Abram taught his science of the stars, and in that sacred temple over there he learned the wisdom of the wise. And when his lessons all were learned, he took his kindred and his flocks and herds and journeyed back to Canaan. And in the plains of Memor pitched his tent, and there he lived, and there he died. M-A-M-R-E. And records of his life and works and of his sons and of the tribes of Israel were all preserved in Jewish sacred books. In Persia, Brahm was known and feared. Men saw him as the one, the causeless cause of all that is, and he was sacred unto them, as Tau to the dwellers of the farther east. The people lived in peace, and justice ruled. But, as in other lands, the Persia priests arose imbued with self and self-desires, who outraged force, intelligence, and love. Religion grew corrupt. Birds and beasts and creeping things were set apart as gods. In course of time, a lofty soul, whom men called Zarathustra, came in flesh. He saw the causeless spirit, high and lifted up. He saw the weakness of all man-appointed gods. He spoke, and all of Persia heard. And when he said, one God, one people, and one shrine, the altars of the idols fell, and Persia was redeemed. But men must see their gods with human eyes, and Zarathustra said, the greatest of the spirits standing near the throne is the Ahura Mazda, who manifests in brightness of the sun. And all the people saw Ahura Mazda in the sun, and they fell down and worshipped him in temples of the sun. And Persia is the Magian land where lived the priests who saw the star arise to mark the place where Mary's son was born, and were the first to greet him as the Prince of Peace. The precepts and the laws of Zarathustra are preserved in the Avesta, which you can read and make your own. But you must know that words are naught till they are made alive, until the lessons they contain become a part of the head and heart. Now, truth is one, but no one knows the truth until he is the truth. It is recorded in an ancient book. Truth is the leavening power of God. It can transmute the all of life into itself. And when the all of life is truth, then man is truth. Chapter 11. Has there been a new comment? No. Mouse over there. Put my feet up for a second and keep reading. Slide the light on over. Chapter 11 says, Elihu's lessons, Buddhism, and the precepts of Buddha, the mysteries of Egypt. Again, Elihu taught. He said, the Indian priests became corrupt. Brahm was forgotten in the streets. The rights of men were trampled in the dust. Then a mighty master came, a Buddha of enlightenment, who turned away from wealth and all the honours of the world and found the silence in the quiet groves and caves, and he was blessed. He preached the gospel of a higher life and taught men how to honour man. He had no doctrine of the gods to teach, he just knew man, and so his creed was justice, love, and righteousness. I quote for you a very... Sorry, I'll start that again. I quote for you a few of many of the helpful words which Buddha spoke. Hate is a cruel word. If men hate you, regard it not, and you can turn the hate of men to love and mercy and goodwill, and mercy is as large as all the heavens. And there is good enough for all. With good, destroy the bad. With generous deeds, make avarice ashamed. With truth, make straight the crooked lines that error draws. For error is but truth distorted, gone astray. And pain will follow him who speaks or acts with evil thoughts, as does the wheel the foot of him who draws the cart. He is a greater man who conquers self than he who kills 1,000 men in war. He is the noble man who is himself what he believes that other men should be. Return to him who does you wrong your purest love, and he will cease from doing wrong. For love will purify the heart of him who is beloved, as truly as it purifies the heart of him who loves. The words of Buddha are recorded in the Indian sacred books. Attend to them, for they are part of the instructions of the Holy Breath. The land of Egypt is the land of secret things. The mysteries of the ages lie lockbound in our temples and our shrines. The masters of all times and climes come here to learn, and when your sons have grown to manhood, they will finish all their studies in Egyptian schools. But I've said enough. Tomorrow is the rising sun. We meet again. Chapter 12. Salome's lessons. Prayer. Elihu's concluding lessons. Sums up the 3 years course of study. The pupils return to their homes. Now, when the morning sun arose, the masters and their pupils all were in the sacred grove. Salome was the first to speak. She said, Behold the sun. It manifests the power of God, who speaks to us through sun and moon and stars, through mountain, hill, and vale, through flower, and plant and tree. God sings for us through bird and harpsichord and human voice. He speaks to us through wind and rain and thunder roll. Why should we not bow down and worship at his feet? God speaks to hearts apart, and hearts apart must speak to him, and this is prayer. It is not prayer to shout at God, to stand or sit or kneel and tell him all about the sins of men. It is not prayer to tell the Holy One how great he is, how good he is, how strong and how compassionate. God is not man to be brought up by praise of man. Prayer is the ardent wish that every way of life be light, that every act be crowned with good, that every living thing be prospered by our ministry. A noble deed, a helpful word is prayer, a fervent and effectual prayer. The fount of prayer is in the heart, by thought, not words. The heart is carried up to God, where it is blessed. Then Let us pray. They prayed, but not a word was said. Then the holy silence, every heart was blessed. And then Elihu spoke. He said to Mary and Elizabeth, "Our words are said, you need not tarry longer here. The call has come. The way is clear, you may return unto your native land. A mighty work is given you to do. You shall direct the minds that will direct the world. Your sons are set apart to lead men up to righteous thoughts and words and deeds, to make men know the sinfulness of sin, to lead them from the adoration of the lower self and all elusive things, and make them conscious of the self that lives with Christ in God. In preparation for their work, your sons must walk in many thorny paths. Fierce trials and temptations they will meet, like other men. Their loads will not be light, and they will be weary and faint. And they will know the pangs of hunger and of thirst, and without cause they will be mocked, imprisoned, scourged. To many countries they will go, and at the feet of many masters they will sit, for they must learn like other men. But we have said enough. The blessings of the three and of the seven who stand before the throne will surely rest upon you evermore." Thus closed the lessons of Elihu and Salome. 3 years they taught their pupils in the sacred grove, and if the lessons all were written in a book, lo, it would be a mighty book of what they said. We had the Son. Now, Mary, Joseph, and Elizabeth, with Jesus and his harbinger, set forth upon their homeward way. They went not by Jerusalem, for Archelaus reigned. They journeyed by the bitter sea, and when they reached the Engedi hills, they rested in the home of Joshua, a near kin, and here Elizabeth and John abode. But Joseph, Mary, and their son went by the Jordan way, and after 7 days they reached their home in Nazareth. Oh, I almost need a bit of a pause here, just to rest and break for a second. I've still got a little bit of beer left. You're done with books, Major Flat D? I can understand that. I actually want to read a lot of my older books that I've got here. There's one in particular, its pages are all torn apart. It's so old, but I intend to read that one of these days as well. I know there's a lot of long-winded stuff in here, much like the Bible, but it is a gospel, the Aquarian gospel of Jesus the Christ. And so I'm just reading through all the mundane parts until I reach a certain section. We're just moving forward. Hey, yeah, this is just, it's only a live stream because I can no longer record on my phone. And this is the way just to record. You know, you can't edit a live stream anyway. So if I did take a pause, it would just be a blank spot. Anyway, section 4, Dale. Childhood and early education of John the Harbinger. Chapter 13. Elizabeth in Engedi teaches her son. John becomes the pupil of Matheno, who reveals to him the meaning of sin and the law of forgiveness. Elizabeth was blessed. She spent her time with John and gave to him the lessons that Elihu and Salome had given her. And John delighted in the wildness of his home and in the lessons that he learned. Now in the hills were many caves. The cave of David was near, in which the hermit of Engedi lived. This hermit was Matheno, priest of Egypt, master from the temple of Saqqara. When John was 7 years of age, Matheno took him to the wilderness, and in the cave of David they abode. Matheno taught, and John was thrilled with what the master said. Day by day, Matheno opened up to him the mysteries of life. John loved the wilderness. He loved his master and his simple fate. Their food was fruits and nuts, wild honey, and the carob bread. Matheno was an Israelite, and he attended all the Jewish feasts. When John was 9 years old, Matheno took him to a great feast in Jerusalem. The wicked Archelaus had been deposed and exiled to a distant land because of selfishness and cruelty, and John was not afraid. John was delighted with his visit to Jerusalem. Hehe told him all about the service of the Jews, the meaning of their sacrifices, and their rites. John could not understand how sin could be forgiven by killing animals and birds and burning them before the Lord. Hehe said, "The God of heaven and earth does not require sacrifice. This custom with its cruel rites was borrowed from the idol worshippers of other lands. No sin was ever blotted out by sacrifice of animal, of bird, or man. Sin is the rushing forth of man into the fens of wickedness. If one could get away from the sin, he must retrace his steps and find his way out of the fens of wickedness. Return and purify your hearts by love and righteousness, and you shall be forgiven. This is the burden of the message that the harbinger shall bring to men." "What is forgiveness?" John inquired. Hehe said, "It is the paying up of debts. A man who wrongs another man can never be forgiven until he rights the wrong. The Vedas say that none can right the wrong but he who does the wrong." John said, "If this be true, where is the power to forgive except the power that rests in man himself? Can man forgive himself?" Hehe said, "The door is wide ajar. You see the way of man's return to right and the forgiveness of his sins." Chapter 14. Hehe's lessons, the doctrine of universal law, the power of man to choose and to attain, the benefits of antagonism. It's a bit faded on this page. Antagonistus. Ancient sacred books, the place of John and Jesus in the world's history. Hehe and his pupil John were talking of the sacred books of olden times and of the golden precepts they contained, and John exclaimed, "These golden precepts are sublime. What need have we of other sacred books?" Hehe said, "The spirits of the Holy One cause everything to come and go in proper time. The sun has its own time to set, the moon to rise, to wax and wane, the stars to come and go, the rain to fall, the winds to blow, the seed times and the harvest times to come, man to be born and man to die. These mighty spirits cause the nations to be born. They rock them in their cradles, nurture them to greatest power, and when their tasks are done, they wrap them in their winding sheets and lay them in their tombs. Events are many in a nation's life, and in the life of man, that are not pleasant for the time, but in the end the truth appears. Whatever comes is for the best. Man was created for a noble part, but he would not be made a free man filled with wisdom, truth, and might. If he were hedged about, confined in straits from which he could not pass, then he would be a toy, a mere machine. Creative spirits gave to man a will, and so he has the power to choose. He may attain the greatest heights or sink to deepest depths. For what he wills to gain, he has the power to gain. If he desires strength, he has the power to gain that strength. But he must overcome resistances to reach the goal. No strength is ever gained in idleness. So, in the whirl of many-sided conflicts, man is placed where he must strive to extricate himself. In every conflict, man gains strength. With every conquest, he attains to greatest heights. With every day, he finds new duties and new cares. Man is not carried over dangerous pits, nor helped to overcome his foes. He is himself his army, and his sword and shield, and he is captain of his hosts. The Holy One just lights his way. Man never has been left without a beacon light to guide, and he has ever had a lighted lamp in his hand, that he may see the dangerous rocks, the turbid streams, and treacherous pits. And so the holy ones have judged. When men have needed added light, a master soul has come to earth to give that light. Before the Vedic days, the world had many sacred books to light the way. And when man needed greater light, the Vedas, the Avesta, and the books of the Tao Great appeared to show the way to greater heights. And in the proper place, the Hebrew Bible, with its law, its prophets, and its psalms, appeared for man's enlightenment. But years have passed, and men have needed of greater light. And now the day star from on high begins to shine, and Jesus is the flesh made manifester to show that light to men. And you, my pupil, you have been ordained to harbinger the coming day. But you must keep that purity of heart, for now possess Sorry, I said that wrong. Oh, got another thumbs up, cheers. I do need to take a break every now and then. Oh, there's my glasses. Books, people, marvels. All BS to you. Hey, it's all cool, Major D. As I kind of said before, our mind is just an open field, whether it be a fertile field. And everything we hear is seeds scattered upon it. Hopefully that's the seeds are coming from a good source. And if they find the fertile soil and they bear fruit, so be it. But you have to at least contemplate them all. And a mastermind basically weeds out all the impure thoughts, all the weeds, and allows the good stuff to grow. So while I may or may not agree with everything in this book, I'm just reading it because I think that there's a lot of power in it, or a lot of seeds that are fertile mind. And where was I? I actually forget where I was at. I couldn't read properly. I'll just start at the very top here. Section for childhood, early education of John, page 31:16. The holy ones just light his way. Man has been left without a beacon light to guide, and he has ever had a lighted lamp in hand that he may see the dangerous rocks, the turbid streams, and treacherous pits. 18. And so the holy ones have judged. When men have needed added light, a master soul has come to earth to give that light. Before the Vedic days, the world had many sacred books to light the way. And when man needed greater light, the Vedas, the Avesta, and the books of Tao Great appeared to show the way to greater heights. And in the proper place, the Hebrew Bible, with its law, its prophets, and its psalms, appeared for man's enlightenment. But years have passed, and men have need of greater light. And now the day star from on high begins to shine. And Jesus is the flesh-made messenger to show that light to men. And you, my pupil, you have been ordained to harbinger the coming day. But you must keep that purity of heart you now possess, and you must light your lamp directly from the coals that burn upon the altar of the holy ones. And then your lamp will be transmuted to a boundless flame, and you will be a living torch whose light will shine wherever man abides. But in the ages yet to come, man will attain to greater heights, and lights still more intense will come. And then, at last, a mighty master soul will come to earth to light the way up to the throne of perfect man. Chapter 15. Death and Burial of Elizabeth, Matheno's Lessons, the Ministry of Death, the Mission of John, Institution of the Rite of Baptism. Matheno takes John to Egypt and places him in the temple of Saqqara, where he remains 18 years. When John was 12 years old, his mother died, and neighbours laid her body in a tomb among her kindred in the Hebron burying ground and near to Zacharias' tomb. And John was deeply grieved. He wept. Matheno said, "It is not well to weep because of death. Death is no enemy of man. It is a friend who, when the work of life is done, just cuts the cord that binds the human boat to earth, that it may sail on smoother seas. No language can describe a mother's worth, and yours was tried and true, but she was not called hence until her tasks were done. The cause of death are always for the best, for we are solving problems there as well as here, and one is sure to find himself where he can solve his problems best. It is but selfishness that makes one wish to call again to earth departed souls. Then let your mother rest in peace, just let her noble life be strength and inspiration unto you. A crisis in your life has come, and you must have a clear conception of the work that you are called to do. The sages of the ages call you harbinger. The prophets look to you and say, "He is Elijah, come again." Your mission here is that of harbinger, for you will go before Messiah's face to pave his way and make the people ready to receive their king. This readiness is purity of heart. None but the pure in heart can recognize the king. To teach men to be pure in heart, you must yourself be pure in heart and word and deed. In infancy, the vow for you was made, and you became a Nazarene. I'll read that again. It says Nazarite. I thought it would be Nazarene. Okay. In infancy, the vow for you was made, and you became a Nazarite. The razor shall not touch your face nor head, and you shall not taste wine nor fiery drinks. Men need a pattern for their lives. They love to follow, not to lead. The man who stands upon the corners of the paths and points the way, but does not go, is just a pointer, and a block of wood can do the same. The teacher treads the way. On every span of ground he leaves his footprints clearly cut, which all can see and be assured that he, their master, went that way. Men comprehend the inner life by what they see and do. They come to God through ceremonies and forms. And so you would make men know that sins are washed away by purity in life. A right symbolic may be introduced. In water, wash the bodies of the people who would turn away from the sin and strive for purity in life. This rite of cleansing is a preparation rite, and they who thus are cleansed comprise the church of purity. And you shall say, you men of Israel, hear, reform and wash, become the sons of purity, and you shall be forgiven. This rise of cleansing and this church are but symbolic of the cleansing of the soul of purity and life, and of the kingdom of the soul, which does not come with outward show, but is the church within. Now, you may never point the way and tell the multitudes to do what you have never done, but you must go before and show the way. You are to teach that men must wash, and you must lead the way. Your body must be washed, symbolic of the cleansing of the soul. John said, why need I wait? May I not go at once and wash? Nathanael said, 'Tis well. And then they went down to the Jordan ford and east of Jericho, just where the hosts of Israel crossed when they first entered Canaan. They tarried for a time. Nathanael taught the harbinger and explained to him the inner meaning of the cleansing rite and how to wash himself and how to wash the multitude. And in the river Jordan, John was washed, and then they returned unto the wilderness. Now in Engady's hills, Nathanael's work was done, and he and John went down to Egypt. They rested not until they reached the temple of Saqqara in the valley of the Nile. For many years, Nathanael was a master in his temple of the brotherhood. And when he told about the life of John and of his mission of the sons of men, the Hierophant went with joy, received the harbinger, and he was called the brother Nazarite. For 18 years, John lived and wrought within these temple gates, and here he conquered self, became a mastermind, and learned the duties of the harbinger. There's still 2 people watching. Hello. Now, Major Flat B asked, do you ever feel that your life is a bizarre dream? Absolutely. For sure. Yes, 100%. This is the world of illusion. This is, for all intents and purposes, the repetitive dream we wake up to every time when we wake up in the morning. So, for sure, yeah, there is that, but hey, it's also awesome. You know what I mean? Like, just imagine if there was no dream to wake up to in the morning that didn't feel real. What would be the point of existence if you lived in eternal bliss? That's great. Okay, I've got eternal bliss. And after an eternity of eternal bliss, you go, now what? Now I want a challenge. I know. Let's create a physical plane upon which we can reincarnate into physical bodies as some sort of beings, human beings, and say, and make it a rule that when you get born, you sort of forget everything before, and so you start from scratch. To me, that It's the most beautiful explanation for existence. Um, yes, it may all be a dream, but there's the karmic effects of um, our actions. So if we do good, good things come to us. If we do bad, bad things come to us. That's basically karma in a nutshell. The whole point is to just enjoy being, which I will just have to go and grab another beer from my fridge. So I'll be back in just a moment. In the meantime, have a look at that chemtrail sign. I'll be right back. Oh, well, thanks for sticking around. I've still got the same two watches and no new comments, so that's all good. Hey, cheers again. Happy Easter Saturday. It's already dark. At least I've fed the dog. I'm not game to take him out for a walk. 6:25 p.m. That's why it's dark. I'm not game to take him out for a walk because every half hour or so we just get logging down rain. That's something I should save for another video because I'm trying to keep this one on track with reading the Aquarian Gospel of Jesus the Christ. But at the same time, hey, here I am. Maybe I am this mastermind they're talking about. Maybe not. Maybe I'm just a drunken fool. Hey. But one thing I can say for sure is I understand the weather. And I see what they've been doing with it. I see how they manipulate it. That's why I deleted everything off my phone earlier. Because even the pictures I took of this specific rainbow, it's not even a rainbow, it's just a heap of bloody lights coming out of a cloud. Not even in a boat, they're coming straight. And every time I see that sort of phenomenon happening, it's usually just the precursor to a major weather event. 2 years ago, we got a major flood. I saw this bizarre rainbow appearing. Now, when I see it, oh, well, of course, it's Easter. We've got our Blues and Roots Festival up at Niagara, which is just north of Byron Bay. You may as well call it Byron Bay. It's still Byron. They have this festival every year, every Easter. And always get what I've termed festival weather. And yeah, it's just there to design to make people's lives pretty miserable, to test out our tolerance to the weather, um, our tolerance to the various, shall I say, biological things that are sprayed in the air that can make people seriously ill. The only reason I knew about chemtrails way back in, let's see, 19 years ago, the year 2000, it's previous to that. I'm pretty sure my daughter was born in 1999, my youngest daughter. And while she was 6 months in the womb, her mother got so seriously affected by this thing called atypical pneumonia that she got taken to the Lismore Base Hospital, and she got shifted around from place to place because they didn't know where to put her. Yeah, she was really pregnant. Well, they didn't want her to infect women with their babies, you know. She got put into the old people's place. Oh, no, they can't really put her there because you might make the old people sick, even though they were there with atypical pneumonia. But anyways, it turns out that was my introduction as to why are all these people suddenly affected by atypical pneumonia when I'm seeing all these lines sprayed across the sky. That's what made me become chemtrail aware and why I started researching into it from that point on. So a lot of people will still try and tell you that they're contrails. Yeah, it is a con. There's a severe case of warfare happening to us daily. And the weather shows the result of what they're doing to us. Anyway, without any further ado, I'm going to continue reading into section B, section 5, actually. You know, just in case you're wondering, I'm not speaking out my armpits. Section 5, He, Childhood and Early Education of Jesus. Chapter 16, the home of Joseph. Mary teaches her son. Jesus' grandparents give a feast in his honor. Jesus has a dream. His grandmother's interpretation. His birthday gift. The home of Joseph was on Marmion Way in Nazareth. Here Mary taught her sons the lessons of a life who and Salome. And Jesus greatly loved the Vedic hymns and the Avesta. But more than all, he loved to read the Psalms of David and the pungent words of Solomon. The Jewish books of prophecy were his delight. And when he reached his 7th year, he needed not the books to read, for he had fixed in memory every word. Joachim and his wife, grandparents of child Jesus, made a feast in honor of the child, and all their near of kin were guests. And Jesus stood before the guests and said, I had a dream, and in my dreams I stood before a sea upon a sandy beach. The waves upon the sea were high, a storm was raging on the deep. Someone above gave me a wand. I took the wand and touched the sand, and every grain of sand became a living thing. The beach was all a mass of beauty and of song. I touched the waters at my feet, and they were changed to trees and flowers and singing birds, and everything was praising God. And someone spoke. I did not see the one who spoke. I heard the voice which said, There is no death. Grandmother Anna loved the child. She laid a hand on Jesus' head and said, I saw you stand behind the sea. I saw you touch the sand and waves. I saw them turn to living things, and then I knew the meaning of the dream. The sea of life rolls high. The storms are great. The multitude of men are idle, listless, waiting, like dead sands upon the beach. Your wand is truth. With this you touch the multitudes, and every man becomes a messenger of holy light and life. You touch the waves upon the sea of life, their turmoil cease, their very minds become a song of praise. There is no death, because the wand of truth can change the driest bones to living things, and bring the loveliest flowers from stagnant ponds, and turn the most discordant notes to harmony and praise. Joachim said, My son, today you pass the 7th milestone of your way of life. for you are 7 years of age, and will give to you as a remembrance of this day, whatever you desire. Choose that which will afford you most delight. And Jesus said, I do not want a gift, for I am satisfied. If I could make a multitude of children glad upon this day, I would be greatly pleased. Now there are many hungry boys and girls in Nazareth who would be pleased to eat with us this feast and share with us the pleasures of this day. The richest gift that you can give to me is your permission to go out and find these needy ones and bring them here that they may feast with us. Joachim said, 'Tis well, go out and find the needy boys and girls and bring them here. We'll prepare enough for all. And Jesus did not wait. He ran. He entered every dingy hut and cabin of the town. He did not waste his words. He told his mission everywhere. And in a little time, 103 score of happy, ragged boys and girls were following him up Marmion Way. The guests made way. The banquet hall was filled with Jesus' guests, and Jesus and his mother helped to serve. And there was food enough for all, and all were glad. And so the birthday gift of Jesus was a crown of righteousness. Chapter 17. Jesus talks with the rabbi of the synagogue of Nazareth. He criticizes the narrowness of Jewish thought. Now, Rabbi Barakiah of the synagogue of Nazareth was aide to Mary in the teaching of her son. One morning after service in the synagogue, the rabbi said to Jesus as he sat in silent thought, "Which is the greatest of the 10 commands?" And Jesus said, "I do not see a greatest of the 10 commands. I see a golden cord that runs through all the 10 commands, that bind them fast and makes them one. This cord is love, and it belongs to every word of all the 10 commands. If one is full of love, he can do nothing else than worship God, for God is love. If one is full of love, he cannot kill, he cannot falsely testify, he cannot covet. He can do naught but honor God and man. If one is full of love, he does not need commands of any kind." And Rabbi Barakiah said, "Your words are seasoned with the salt of wisdom that is from above. Who is the teacher who has opened up this truth to you?" And Jesus said, "I do not know that any teacher opened up this truth for me. It seems to me that truth was never shut, that it was always opened up. For truth is one, and it is everywhere. And if we open up the windows of our minds, the truth will enter in and make herself at home. For truth can find her way through any crevice, any window, any open door." The rabbi said, "What hand is strong enough to open up the windows and the doors of mine so truth can enter in?" And Jesus said, "It seems to me that love, the golden cord that binds the 10 commands in one, is strong enough to open any human door so that the truth can enter in and cause the heart to understand." Now in the evening, Jesus and his mother sat alone, and Jesus said, "The rabbi seems to think that God is partial in his treatment of sons of men, that Jews are favored and are blessed above all other men. I do not see how God can have his favorites and be just. Are not Samaritans and Greeks and Romans just as much the children of the Holy One as are the Jews? I think the Jews have built a wall about themselves, and they see nothing on the other side of it. They do not know that flowers are blooming over there, that sowing times and reaping times belong to everybody but the Jews. It surely would be well if we would break these barriers down so that the Jews might see that God has other children that are just as greatly blessed. I want to go from Jew land and meet my kin in other countries of my fatherland." G'day, Mark. Mr. Swarbrick. Thanks for joining in, mate. I'm just reading from the Aquarian Gospel of Jesus the Christ. I think there's a lot of wisdom in it. So I'm just reading through it. But hey, good on you, mate, and thanks again. You're a really good man. Much appreciated. Chapter 18. Jesus at a feast in Jerusalem is grieved by the cruelties of the sacrifices. Appeals to Hillel, who sympathizes with him. He remains in the temple a year. think I've got something stuck in my throat, but maybe I'll try and wash it down a bit better. Okay. The great feast of the Jews was on, and Joseph, Mary, and their son, and many of their kin, went to Jerusalem. The child was 10 years old. And Jesus watched the butchers kill the lambs and birds and burn them on the altar in the name of God. His tender heart was shocked at this display of cruelty. He asked the serving priests, "What is the purpose of this slaughter of the beasts and birds? Why do you burn their flesh before the Lord?" The priest replied, "This is our sacrifice for sin. God has commanded us to do these things and said that in these sacrifices all our sins are blotted out." And Jesus said, "Will you be kind enough to tell when God proclaimed that sins are blotted out by sacrifice of any kind? Did not David say that God requires not a sacrifice for sin, that it is sin itself to bring before his face burnt offerings as offerings for sin? Did not Isaiah say the same?" The priest replied, "My child, you are beside yourself. Do you know more about the laws of God than all the priests of Israel? This is no place for boys to show their wit." But Jesus heeded not his taunts. He went to Hillel, chief of the Sanhedrin, and said to him, "Rabboni, I would like to talk with you. I'm disturbed about this sacrifice of the Paschal feast. I thought the temple was the house of God where love and kindness dwell. Do you not hear the bleating of those lambs, the pleading of those doves that men are killing over there? Do you not smell that awful stench that comes from burning flesh? Can man be blind and just and still be filled with cruelty? A God that takes delight in sacrifice, in blood and burning flesh, is not my Father God. I want to find a God of love, and you, my master, you are wise, and surely you can tell me where to find the God of love." But Hillel could not give an answer to the child. His heart was stirred with sympathy. He called the child to him. He laid his hand upon his head and wept. He said, "There is a God of love, and you shall come with me, and hand in hand we will go forth and find the God of love." And Jesus said, "Why need we go? I thought that God is everywhere. Can we not purify our hearts and drive out cruelty and every wicked thought, and make within a temple where the God of love can dwell?" The master of the great Sanhedrin felt as though he was himself the child, and that before him stood Rabboni, master of the highest law. He said within himself, "This child is surely a prophet sent from God." Then Hillel sought the parents of the child and asked that Jesus might abide with them and learn the precepts of the law and all the lessons of the temple priests. His parents gave consent, and Jesus did abide within the holy temple in Jerusalem. And Hillel taught him every day. And every day the master learned from Jesus many lessons of the higher life. The child remained with Hillel in the temple for a year, and then returned unto his home in Nazareth, where he wrought with Joseph as a carpenter. Chapter 19. Jesus at the age of 12 in the temple, disputes with the doctors of the law, reads from a book of prophecy. By request of Hillel, he interprets the prophecies. Again, the great feast in Jerusalem was on. Joseph, Mary, and their son were there. The child was 12 years old. And there were Jews and proselytes from many countries in Jerusalem. And Jesus sat among the priests and doctors in the temple hall. And Jesus opened up a book of prophecy and read, "Woe, woe to Ariel. Woe, woe to Ariel, the town where David dwelt. I will dismantle Ariel, and she shall groan and weep. And I will camp against her round about with hostile posts. And I will bring her low, and she shall speak out of the earth. With muffled voice, like a familiar spirit, shall she speak. Yea, she shall only whisper forth her speech. And foes unnumbered, like the grains of dust, shall come upon her suddenly. The Lord of hosts will visit her with thunder and with tempest, and with storm, with earthquake, and with devouring flames. Lo, all these people have deserted me. They draw to me with speech, and with their lips they honour me. Their hearts they are far removed from me. Their fear for me is that inspired by man. And I will breathe an adverse breath upon my people, Israel. The wisdom of their wise men shall be lost. The understanding of their prudent men shall not be found. My people seek to hide their counsel from the Lord, so that their works may not be seen. They fain would cover up their works with darkness of the night, and say, Who see us now? Who knows us now? Poor foolish men, shall that which has been made say of its maker, He is not, I made myself? Or shall the pot speak out and say to him who made the pot, You have no skill, you do not know? But this will not forever be. The time will come when Lebanon will be a fruitful field, and fruitful fields will be transformed to groves. And on that day the deaf will hear the words of God. The blind will read the book of God's remembrance. And suffering ones will be relieved, and they will have abundant joy, and everyone that needs will be supplied, and it will come to pass that all the foolish will be wise. The people will return and sanctify the Holy One, and in their heart of hearts, lo, they will reverence him. When Jesus had thus read, he put aside the book and said, You masters of the law, would you make plain for us the prophet's words? Now Hillel sat among the masters of the law, and he stood forth and said, Perhaps our young Rabboni who has read the word will be interpreter. And Jesus said, The Ariel of the prophet is our own Jerusalem. By selfishness and cruelty, this people has become a stench unto the Elohim. The prophet saw these days from afar, and of these times he wrote, Our doctors, lawyers, priests, and scribes oppress the poor, while they themselves in luxury live. The sacrifices and the offerings of Israel are but abomination unto God. The only sacrifice that God requires is self. Because of this injustice and this cruelty to man, the Holy One has spoken of this commonwealth. Lo, I will overturn. Yes, I will overturn. It shall be overturned, and it shall be no more until he comes, whose right it is, and I will give it unto him. In all the world there is one law of right, and who breaks that law will suffer grief, for God is just. And Israel has gone far astray, has not regarded justice, not the rights of man. And God demands that Israel shall reform and turn again to ways of holiness. And if our people will not hear the voice of God, lo, nations from afar will come and sack Jerusalem and treat and tear our temple down and take our people captive into foreign lands. But this will not forever be, though they be scattered far and wide and wander here and there among the nations of the earth, like sheep that have no shepherd God. The time will come when God will bring again the captive hosts, for Israel shall return and dwell in peace. And after many years our temple shall be built again, and one whom God will honor, one in whom the pure in heart delights, will come and glorify the house of God and reign in righteousness. When Jesus had said thus, he stepped aside, and all the people were amazed and said, This surely is the Christ. Chapter 20. After the feast, the homeward journey, the missing Jesus, the search for him. His parents find him in the temple. He goes with them to Nazareth, symbolic meaning of the carpenter's tools. It's all connected. Trust me. The great feast of the Pasch was ended, and the Nazarenes were journeying towards their homes. They were in Samaria, and Mary said, Where is my son? No one had seen the boy. And Joseph sought among their kindred who were on their way to Galilee, but they had seen him not. Then Joseph, Mary, and the son of Zebedee returned and sought through all Jerusalem, but they could find him not. And then they went up to the temple courts and asked the guards, Have you seen Jesus? Now listen to this. This is the one I've been searching for a long time, which is why I'm reading through this. Then they went up to the temple courts and asked the guards, "Have you seen Jesus, a fair-haired boy with deep blue eyes, 12 years of age, about these courts?" The guards replied, "Yes, he's in the temple now, disputing with the doctors of the law." And they went in and found him, as the guards had said. And Mary said, "Why, Jesus, why do you treat your parents thus? Lo, we have sought 2 days for you. We feared that some great harm had overtaken you." And Jesus said, "Do you not know that I must be about my Father's work?" But he went round and pressed the hand of every doctor of the law and said, "I trust that we may meet again." And then he went forth with his parents on their way to Nazareth. When they reached their home, he brought Joseph as a carpenter. One day, as he was bringing forth the tools for work, he said, "These tools remind me of the ones we handle in the workshop of the mind, where things were made of thought and where we build up character. We use the square to measure all our lines, to straighten out the crooked places of the way and make the corners of our conduct square. We use the compass to draw circles around our passions and desires to keep them in the bounds of righteousness. We use the axe to cut away the knotty, useless, and ungainly parts and make the character symmetrical. We use the hammer to drive home the truth and pound it in until it is a part of every part. We use the plane to smooth the rough, uneven surfaces of joint and block and board that go to build the temple for the truth. The chisel, lion, the plumber, and the saw all have their uses in the workshop of the mind. And then this ladder with its trinity of steps, faith, hope, and love. On it we climb up to the dome of purity and life. And on the 12-step ladder we ascend until we reach the pinnacle of that which life is spent to build, the temple of perfected man. And that is where I will finish my reading of that for the moment. Take another quick glance at the comments, and the last one I see was from Major Flat D. Again, I really appreciate that you hang around and contribute. You think there's a connection too? Could be wrong. Yeah, I kind of addressed that, I think, in my last statement. Just saying there is a connection. There's always a connection. Everything is connected. And I think if you're listening to the wisdom of the words that come from this book, you'll find them. And only because it's Easter, next time I come around, I'm at the section 4 or 6, B1, Life and Works of Jesus in India. I just want to reiterate, just so that it goes without saying. I'm just going to go back to this last chapter and just say this, read through this one more time, because this is one of the things I think is the most significant thing when people say that, you know, Jesus should look like some Middle Eastern, almost. How do I describe him? Not Homo erectus. Anyway, you've probably all seen the images of what they say Jesus should look like. But this clearly states right here, right now. Then Joseph, Mary, and the son of Zebedee returned and sought through all Jerusalem, but they could find him not. Then they went up to the temple courts and asked the guards, "Have you seen Jesus, a fair-haired boy with deep blue eyes, 12 years of age, about these courts?" The guards replied, "Yes, he's in the temple, now disputing with the doctors of the law." So, to me, this is the best evidence that we have that Jesus was, in fact, fair-haired and blue-eyed. And this is what kind of set him apart from everybody at the time. You know, he was considered strange-looking because he did not fit the brown-eyed, brown-haired, brown-skinned typical look of what people were during those days. I'm just going to keep reading. What Section 6, Life and Works of Jesus in India, chapter 21. I was going to jump from here to the place where he was crucified and resurrected. I hope to do that before I finish, but hey, it's a Saturday. Might go cook some dinner later, maybe not. I ate yesterday. So, no glasses to take off. It's all good. Chapter 21. Ravana sees Jesus in the temple and is captivated. Hillel tells him about the boy. Ravana finds Jesus in Nazareth and gives a feast in his honor. Ravana becomes patron of Jesus and takes him to India to study the Brahmic religion. Just touch. All good. A royal prince of India, Ravana of Orissa in the south, was at the Jewish feast. Ravana was a man of wealth and he was just, and with a band of Brahmic priests sought wisdom in the west. When Jesus stood among the Jewish priests and read and spoke, Ravana heard, and he was amazed. And when he asked who Jesus was, from whence he came, and what he was, Chief Hillel said, "We call this child the day star from on high, for he has come to bring to men a light, the light of life, to lighten up the way of man and to redeem his people, Israel." And Hillel told Ravana all about the child, about the prophecies concerning him, about the wonders of the night when he was born, about the visit of the Magi and priests, about the way in which he was protected from the wrath of evil men, about his flight to Egypt land, and how he then was serving with his father as a carpenter in Nazareth. Ravana was entranced and asked to know the way of Nazareth, that he might go and honour such a one as Son of God. And with his gorgeous train he journeyed on the way and came to Nazareth of Galilee. He found the object of his search engaged in building dwellings for the sons of men. And when he first saw Jesus, he was climbing up a 12-step ladder, and he carried in his hands a compass, square, and axe. Ravana said, "All hail, most favoured Son of Heaven." And at the inn, Ravana made a feast for all the people of the town, and Jesus and his parents were the honoured guests. For certain days, Ravana was a guest in Joseph's home on Marmion Way. He sought to learn the secret of the wisdom of the sun, but it was all too great for him. And then he asked that he might be the patron of the child, might take him to the east where he could learn the wisdom of the Brahms. And Jesus longed to go that he might learn. After many days, his parents gave consent. Then, with proud heart, Ravana and his train began the journey towards the rising sun. And after many days, they crossed the Sind and reached the province of Orissa and the palace of the prince. The Brahmic priests were glad to welcome home the prince. With favour, they received the Jewish boy. And Jesus was accepted as a pupil, and in the temple Jagannath, he learned the Vedas and the Manic laws. The Brahmic masters wondered at the clear conception of the child and often were amazed when he explained to them the meaning of the laws. Chapter 22. The friendship of Jesus and Lamaz. Jesus explains to Lamaz the meaning of truth, man, power, understanding, wisdom, salvation, and faith. Among the priests of Jagannath was one who loved the Jewish boy. Lamaz Brahmaz was the name by which the priest was known. One day, as Jesus and Lamaz walked alone in Plaza Jagannath, Lamaz said, "My Jewish master, what is truth?" And Jesus said, "Truth is the only thing that changes not. In all the world there are two things. The one is truth, the other falsehood is. And truth is that which is, and falsehood that which seems to be. Now, Truth is aught and has no cause, and yet it is the cause of everything. Falsehood is naught, and yet it is the manifest of aught. Whatever has been made will be unmade, and that which begins must end. All things that can be seen by human eyes are manifests of aught, are naught, and so must pass away. The things we see are but reflexes just appearing, while the ethers vibrate so and so, and when conditions change, they disappear. The holy breath is truth, is that which was, and is, and evermore shall be. It cannot pass away. It cannot change, nor pass away. Lamaz said, "You answer well. Now, what is man?" And Jesus said, "Man is the truth and falsehood strangely mixed. Man is the breath made flesh. So truth and falsehood are conjoined in him, and then they strive, and naught goes down, and man as truth abides." Again, Lamaz asked, "What do you say of power?" And Jesus said, "It is a manifest. It is the result of force. It is but naught. It is illusion, nothing more. Force changes not, but power changes as the ethers change. Force is the will of God and is omnipotent, and power is that will in manifest directed by the breath. There is power in the winds, power in the waves, power in the lightning stroke, a power in the human arm, a power in the eye. The ethers cause these powers to be, and thought of Elohim, of angel, man, and other thinking thing directs the force. When it has done its work, the power is no more." Again, Lamaz asked, "Of understanding, what have you to say?" And Jesus said, "It's the rock on which man builds himself. It is the gnosis of thought, of aught, and of the naught, of falsehood, and of truth. It is the knowledge of the lowest self, the sensing of the powers, and man himself." Again, Lamaz asked, "Of wisdom, what have you to say?" And Jesus said, "It's the consciousness of man is aught, that God and man are one, that naught is naught, that power is but illusion, that heaven and earth and hell are not above, around, below, but in, which in the light of aught becomes the naught, and God is all." Lamaz asked, "Pray, what is faith?" And Jesus said, "Faith is the surety of the omnipotence of God and man, the certainty that man will reach the deific life. Salvation is a ladder reaching from the heart of man to the heart of God. It has 3 steps. Belief is first, and this is what man thinks, perhaps, is truth. And faith is next, and this is what man knows is truth. Fruition is last, and this is man himself, the truth. Belief is lost in faith, and in fruition faith is lost, and man is saved when he has reached deific life, when he and God are one." Have a good night to Major D. Thanks for dropping by. Chapter 23. Jesus and Lamaz among the Sudras and Visayas. Well, I think that's how you pronounce it. In Benares, Jesus becomes a pupil of Udjaka. The lessons of Udjaka. Now, Jesus with his friend Lamaz went through all the regions of Orissa and the valley of the Ganges, seeking wisdom from the Sudras and the Viziers and the masters. Benares of the Ganges was a city rich in culture and in learning. Here the 2 Rabbonis tarried many days. And Jesus sought to learn the Hindu art of healing and became the pupil of Udjaka, greatest of the Hindu healers. Udjaka taught the uses of the waters, plants, and earths, of heat and cold, sunshine and shade, of light and dark. He said, "The laws of nature are the laws of health, and he who lives according to these laws is never sick. Transgression of these laws is sin, and he who sins is sick. He who obeys the laws maintains an equilibrium in all of his parts, and thus ensures true harmony, and harmony is health, while discord is disease. That which produces harmony in all parts of man is medicine, ensuring health. The body is a harpsichord, and when its strings are too relaxed or too tense, the instrument is out of tune, the man is sick. Now, everything in nature has been made to meet the wants of man, so everything is found in medicinal arcanes. And when the harpsichord of man is out of tune, the vast expanse of nature may be searched for remedy. There is a cure for every ailment of the flesh. Of course, the will of man is remedy supreme, and by the rigorous exercise of will, man may make tense a cord that is relaxed, or may relax one that is too tense, and thus may heal himself. When man has reached the place where he has faith in God, in nature, and himself, he knows the word of power. His word is balm for every wound, is cure for all the ills of life. The healer is the man who can inspire faith. The tongue may speak to human ears, but souls are reached by the souls that speak to souls. He is the forceful man whose soul is large and who can enter into souls, inspiring hope in those who have no hope and faith in those who have no faith in God, in nature, nor in man. There is no universal balm for those who tread the common walks of life. 1,000 things produce inharmony and make men sick. 1,000 things may tune the harpsichord and make men well. That which is medicine for one is poison for another one. So one is healed by what would kill another one. A herb may heal the one, a drink of water may restore another one, a mountain breeze may bring to life one seeming past all help. A coal of fire or bit of earth may cure another one, and one may wash in certain streams or pools and be made whole. The virtue from the hand of breath may heal 1,000 more, but love is queen. Thought, reinforced by love, is God's great sovereign vow. But many of the broken chords in life and discords that so vex the soul are caused by evil spirits of the air that men see not, that lead man on through ignorance to break the laws of nature and of God. These powers act like demons, and they speak. They rend the man. They drive him to despair. But he who is a healer, true, is master of the soul, and can, by force of will, control these evil ones. Some spirits of the air are master spirits and are strong, too strong for human power alone. But man has helpers in the highest realms that may be importuned, and they will help to drive the demons out. Of what this great physician said, this is the sum. And Jesus bowed his head in recognition of the wisdom of this master's soul and went his way. Chapter 24. The Brahmic doctrine of castes. Jesus repudiates it and teaches human equality. The priests are offended and drive him from the temple. He abides with the Sudras and teaches them. 4 years the Jewish boy abode in Temple Jagannath. One day he sat among the priests and said to them, "Pray, tell all about your view of castes, and why you say that all men are not equal in the sight of God." The master of their laws, did I just say lies? A master of their laws stood forth and said, "The Holy One whom we call Brahm made men to suit himself, and men should not complain. In the beginning days of human life, Brahm spoke, and 4 men stood before his face. Now from the mouth of Parabrahm the first man came, and he was white, was like the Brahm himself, a Brahmin he was called. And he was high and lifted up, above all want he stood. He had no need of toil. And he was called the priest of Brahm, the Holy One to act for Brahm in all affairs of earth. The second man was red, and from the hand of Parabrahm he came, and he was called Kshatriya, and he was made to be the king, the ruler, and the warrior. His highest ordained duty was protection of the priest. From the inner parts of Parabrahm, the third man came. He was called Vijaya. He was a yellow man, and it was he was a yellow man, and his it was to till the soil and keep the flocks and herds. And from the feet of Parabrahm came the fourth man, and he was black, and he was called the Sudras, one of low estate. The Sudras is the servant of the race of men, and he has no rights that others need respect. He may not hear the Vedas read, and it means death to him to look into the face of priest or king, and naught but death can free him from his state of servitude. And Jesus said, then Parabrahm is not a God of justice and of right, for with his own strong hand he has exalted one and brought another low. And Jesus said no more to them, but looked up to heaven and said, my Father God, who was, and is, and evermore shall be, who holds within thy hands the scales of justice and of right, who in the boundlessness of love has made all men to equal be, the white, the black, the yellow, and the red can look up in thy face and say, our Father God, thou Father of the human race, I praise thy name. And all the priests were angered by the words which Jesus spoke. They rushed upon him, seized him, and would have done him harm. But then the Mars raised his hand and said, you priests of Brahm, beware. You know not what you do. Wait till you know the God this youth adores. I beheld this boy at prayer when light above the light of sun surrounded above him. Beware, this God may be more powerful than Brahm. If Jesus speaks the truth, if he is right, you cannot force him to desist. If he is wrong and you are right, his words will come to naught. For right is might, and in the end it will prevail. And then the priest refrained from doing Jesus harm, but one spoke out and said, within this holy place has not this reckless youth done violence to Bahar-Brahm? The law is plain. It says, he who reviles the name of Brahm shall die. The Mars fled for Jesus' life. Then the priest just seized the scourge of cords and drove him from the place. And Jesus went his way and found a shelter with the black and yellow men, the servants and tillers of the soil. To them he first made known the gospel of equality. He told them of the brotherhood of man, the fatherhood of God. The common people heard him with delight and learned to pray, our Father God, who art in heaven. Chapter 25. Jesus teaches the Sudras and farmers, relates a parable of a nobleman and his unjust sons, makes known the possibilities of all men. When Jesus saw the Sudras and the farmers in such multitudes draw near to hear his words, he spoke a parable to them. He said, a nobleman possesses a great estate. He had 4 sons, and he would have them all grow strong by standing forth and making use of all the talents they possessed. And so he gave to each a share of his great wealth and bade them go their way. The eldest son was full of self. He was ambitious, shrewd, and quick of thought. He said within himself, I am the oldest son, and these, my brothers, must be servants at my feet. And then he called his brothers forth, and one he made a puppet king, gave him a sword, and charged him to defend his whole estate. To one he gave the use of his lands and flowing wells, and flocks and herds, and bade him till the soil, tend the flocks and herds, and bring to him the choicest of his gains. And to the other he said, you are the youngest son. The broad estate has been assigned. You have no part nor lot in anything that is. And then he took a chain and bound his brother to a naked rock upon a desert plain, and said to him, you have been born a slave, you have no rights, and you must be contented with your lot, for there is no release for you until you die and go from hence. Now after certain years, the day of reckoning came. The nobleman called up his sons to render their accounts. And when he knew that one, his eldest son, had seized the whole estate and made his brothers slaves, he seized him, tore his priestly robes away, and put him in a prison cell, where he was forced to stay until he had returned for all the wrongs that he had done. And then, as they were but toys, he threw in air the throne and armor of the puppet king. He broke his sword and put him in a prison cell. And then he called his farmer's son and asked him why he had not rescued from his galling chains the brother on the desert sands. And when the son made answer not, the father took unto himself the flocks and herds, the fields and flowing wells, and sent the farmer's son to live out on the desert sands until he had atoned for the wrongs he had done. And then the father went and found his youngest son in cruel chains, and with his own hands he broke the chains and bade his son to go in peace. Now when the sons had all paid up their debts, they came again and stood before the bar of right. They all had learned their lessons, learned them well, and then the father once again divided the estate. He gave to each an equal share and bade them recognize the law of equity and right and live in peace. And one, a Sudras, spoke and said, May we who are but slaves, who are cut down like beasts to satisfy the whims of priests, may we have hope that one will come to break our chains and set us free? And Jesus said, The Holy One has said that all his children shall be free, that every soul is child of God. The Sudras shall be free as priests. The farmer shall walk hand in hand with king, for all the world will own the brotherhood of man. O man, arise. Be conscious of your powers, for he who wills will need not remain a slave. Just live as you would have your brother live. Unfold each day as does the flower, for earth is yours, and heaven is yours, and God will bring you to your own. And all the people cried, Show us the way that like the flower we may unfold and come unto your own. Chapter 26. Jesus at Techa-tec, the car of Jagannath. Jesus reveals to the people the emptiness of Brahmic rights and how to see God in man, teaches them the divine law of sacrifice. In all the cities of Orissa, Jesus taught. At Techa-tec, by the riverside, he taught, and thousands of the people followed him. One day a car of Jagannath was hauled along by scores of frenzied men, and Jesus said, Behold, a form without a spirit passes by, a body with no soul, a temple with no altar fires. This car of Krishna is an empty thing, for Krishna is not there. This car is but an idol of people drunk on wine of carnal things. God lives not in the noise of tongues. There is no way to him from an idol shrine. God's meeting place with man is in the heart, and in a still, small voice he speaks, and he who hears is still. And all the people said, Teach us to know the Holy One who speaks within the heart, God of the still, small voice. And Jesus said, The holy breath cannot be seen with mortal eyes, nor can men see the spirits of the Holy One. But in their image man was made, and he who looks into the face of man looks at the image of the God who speaks within. And when man honors man, he honors God. And what man does for man, he does for God. And you must bear in mind that when man harms in thought or word or deed another man, he does a wrong to God. If you would serve the God who speaks within the heart, just serve your near of kin, those that are no kin, the strangers at your gates, the foe who seeks you to do no harm. Assist the poor and help the weak. Do harm to none, and covet not what is not yours. Then with your tongue the Holy One will speak, and he will smile behind your tears, will light your countenance with joy, and fill your hearts with peace. And then the people asked, "To whom shall we bring gifts? Where shall we offer sacrifice?" And Jesus said, "Our Father God asks not for needless waste of plant, of grain, of dove, of lamb. That which you burn on any shrine you throw away. No blessings can attend the one who takes the food from hungry mouths to be destroyed by fire. When you would offer sacrifices unto our God, just take your gift of grain or meat and lay it on the table of the poor. From it an incense will arise in heaven, which will return you with blessings. Tear down your idols, they can hear you not. Turn all your sacrificial altars into fuel for the flames. Make human hearts your altars, and burn your sacrifices with the fire of love." And all the people were entranced and would have worshipped Jesus as a God. But Jesus said, "I'm your brother man, just come to show you the way to God. You shall not worship man. Praise God, the Holy One." Chapter 27. Jesus attends a feast in Hehe, preaches a revolutionary sermon on human equality, relates the parable of the broken blades. The fame of Jesus as a teacher spread through all the land, and people came from near and far to hear his words of truth. At Hehe, on the sacred river of the Brahms, he taught for many days. And Ak, a wealthy man of Hehe, made a feast in honor of his guest, and he invited everyone to come. And many came, among them thieves, extortioners, and courtesans. And Jesus sat with them and taught. But they who followed him were much aggrieved, because he sat with thieves and courtesans. And they upbraided him. They said, "Rabboni, master of the wise, this day will be an evil day for you. The news will spread that you consort with courtesans and thieves, and men will shun you as they shun an asp." And Jesus answered them and said, "A master never screens himself for sake of reputation or of fame. These are but worthless baubles of the day. They rise and sink like empty bottles on a stream. They are illusions and will pass away. They are the indices to what the thoughtless think. They are the noise that people make, and shallow men judge merit by the noise. God and all masters," pardon me, I'll just clear my throat. God and all master men judge men by what they are, and not by what they seem to be, not by their reputation and their fame. These courtesans and thieves are children of my Father God. Their souls are just as precious in his sight as yours or of the Brahmic priests. And they are working out the same life sums that you, who pride yourselves on your respectability and moral worth, are working out. And some of them have sold much harder sums than you have sold, you men who look at them with scorn. Yes, they are sinners, and confess their guilt, while you are guilty, but are shrewd up enough to have a polished coat to cover up your guilt. Suppose you men who scorn these courtesans, these drunkards and these thieves, who know you are pure in heart and life, that you are better far than they. Stand forth, that men may know just who you are. The sin lies in the wish, in the desire, not in the act. You covet other people's wealth. You look at charming forms, and deep within your hearts you lust for them. Deceit you practice every day, and wish for gold, for honor, and for fame, just for your selfish souls. The man who covets is a thief, and he who lusts is a courtesan. You who are none of these, speak out. Nobody spoke. The accusers held their peace. And Jesus said, "The proof this day is all against those who have accused. The pure in heart do not accuse. The vile in heart, who want to cover up their guilt with holy smoke of piety, are ever loathing, drunken, thief, and courtesan. This loathing and this scorn is mockery. For if the tinselled coat of reputation could be torn away, The loud professor would be found to revel in his lust, deceit, and many forms of secret sin. The man who spends his time in pulling other people's weeds can have no time to pull his own, and all the choicest flowers of life will soon be choked and die, and nothing will remain but darnel, thistles, burrs. And Jesus spoke a parable. He said, Behold, a farmer had great fields of ripened grain, and when he looked, he saw that blades of many stalks of wheat were bent and broken down. And when he sent his reapers forth, he said, We will not save the stalks of wheat that have broken blades. Go forth and cut and burn the stalks with broken blades. And after many days he went to measure up his grain, but not a kernel could be found. He then called the harvesters and said to them, Where is my grain? They answered him and said, We did according to your word. We gathered up and burned the stalks with broken blades, and not a stalk was left to carry to the barn. Jesus said, If God saves only those who have no broken blades, who have been perfect in his sight, who will be saved? And the accusers hung their heads in shame, and Jesus went his way. Chapter 28. Eudraka gives a feast in Jesus' honor. Jesus speaks on the unity of God and the brotherhood of life, criticizes the priesthood, becomes the guest of a farmer. Benares is the sacred city of the Brahmins, and in Benares Jesus taught. Eudraka was his host. Eudraka made a feast in honor of his guest, and many high-born Hindu priests and scribes were there. And Jesus said to them, With much delight I speak to you concerning life, the brotherhood of life. The universal God is one, yet he is more than one. All things are God. All things are one. By the sweet breaths of God, all life is bound in one. So if you touch a fibre of a living thing, you send a thrill from centre to the outer bounds of life. And when you crush beneath your foot the meanest worm, you shake the throne of God and cause the sword of right to tremble in its sheath. The bird sings out its song for men, and men vibrate in unison to help it sing. The ant constructs her home, the bee is sheltering comb, the spider weaves her web, and flowers breathe to them a spirit in their sweet perfumes that gives them strength to toil. Now men and birds and beasts and creeping things are deities made flesh, and how dare man kill anything? 'Tis cruelty that makes the world awry. When men have learned that when they harm a living thing, they harm themselves, they surely will not kill, nor cause the thing that God has made to suffer pain. A lawyer said, I pray you, Jesus, tell who is this God you speak about? Where are his priests, his temples and his shrines? And Jesus said, The God I speak about is everywhere. He cannot be compassed with walls, nor hedged about with bounds of any kind. All people worship God, the one, but all the people see him not alike. This universal God is wisdom, will, and love. All men see not the triune God. One sees him as the God of might, another as the God of thought, another as the God of love. A man's ideal is his God. And so, as man unfolds, his God unfolds. Man's God today, tomorrow, is not God. The nations of earth see God from different points of view, and so he does not seem the same to everyone. Man names the parts of God he sees, and this to him is all of God. And every nation sees a part of God, and every nation has a name for God. You Brahmins call him Parabrahm. In Egypt he is called Thoth, and Zeus is his name in Greece. Jehovah is his Hebrew name. But everywhere he is the causeless cause, the rootless root from which all things have grown. When men become afraid of God and take him for a foe, they dress up other men in fancied garbs and call them priests, and charge them to restrain the wrath of God by prayers. And when they fail to win his favour by their prayers, they buy him off with sacrifice of animal or bird. When man sees God as one with him, as Father God, he needs no middleman, no priest to intercede. He goes straight up to him and says, my Father God. And then he lays his hand on God's own hand, and all is well. And this is God. You are, each one, a priest, just for yourself, and sacrifice of blood God does not want. Just give your life in sacrificial service to the all of life, and God is pleased. When Jesus had thus said, he stood aside, and people were amazed, but strove among themselves. Some said, he's inspired by holy ground. Another said, he's insane. Another said, he is obsessed. He speaks as devils speak. But Jesus tarried not. Among the guests was one, tiller of the soil, a generous soul, a seeker after truth, who loved the words that Jesus spoke. And Jesus went with him, and in his home abode. At this rate, I'm going to end up reading the whole bloody book. I said bloody. Just have a quick peek. No new comments. All good. Okay, I'm going to read the next chapter now, chapter 29. And Janan, a priest from Lahore, comes to Benares to see Jesus and abides in the temple. Jesus refuses an invitation to visit the temple. And Janan visits him at night in the farmer's home and accepts his philosophy. Among Benares' temple priests was one, a guest, Janan from Lahore. I can't read that one. By merchantmen. It just says merchantmen. I might have had mushrooms last night. Affecting my ability to read. By merchantmen, Janan heard about the Jewish boy, about his words of wisdom, and he girt himself and journeyed from Lahore that he might see the boy and hear him speak. The Brahmic priests did not accept the truth that Jesus brought, and they were angered much by what he said at the Udraka feast. But they had never seen the boy, and they desired much to hear him speak, and they invited him to be a temple guest. But Jesus said to them, the light is most abundant, and it shines for all. If you would see the light, come to the light. If you would hear the message of the Holy One given me to give to men, come unto me. Now when the priests were told what Jesus said, they were enraged. And Janan did not share their wrath, and he sent forth another messenger with costly gifts to Jesus at the farmer's home. He sent this message with the gifts. I pray you, master, listen to my words. The Brahmic law forbids that any priest shall go into the home of anyone of low estate, but you can come to us. And I'm sure these priests will gladly hear you speak. I pray that you will come and dine with us this day. And Jesus said, the Holy One regards all men alike. The dwelling of my host is good enough for any counsel of the sons of men. If pride of caste keeps you away, you are not worthy of the light. My Father God does not regard the laws of man. Your presence I return. You cannot buy the knowledge of the Lord with gold or precious gifts. These words of Jesus angered more and more the priests, and they began to plot and plan how they might drive him from the land. But Janan did not join with them in plot and plan. He left the temple in the night and sought the home where Jesus dwelt. And Jesus said, there is no night. Fucking hell, it sounds like Yoda. And Jesus said, there is no light where shines the sun. I have no secret messages to give. In light, all secrets are revealed. Works for me. Janan said, I came from far away Lahore that I might learn about this ancient wisdom and this kingdom of the Holy One of which you speak. Where is the kingdom? Where is the king? Who are the subjects? What is its laws? And Jesus said, this kingdom is not far away, but man with mortal eyes can see it not, It is within the heart. You need not seek the King in earth, or sea, or sky. He is not there, and yet is everywhere. He is the Christ of God, his universal love. The gate of this dominion is not high, and he who enters it must fall down on his knees. It is not wide, but none can carry carnal bundles through. The lower self must be transmuted into spirit self. The body must be washed in living streams of purity. As Jainan asked, can I become a subject of this king? And Jesus said, you are yourself a king, and you may enter through the gate and be a subject of the King of Kings. But you must lay aside your priestly robes, must cease to serve the Holy One for gold. You must give your life and all you have in willing service to the sons of men. And Jesus said no more. And Jainan went his way, and while he could not comprehend the truth that Jesus spoke, he saw what he had never seen before. The realm of faith he never had explored, but in his heart the seeds of faith and universal brotherhood had found good soil. And as he journeyed to his home, he seemed to sleep, passed through darkness night, and when he woke, the Sun of Righteousness had arisen, and he found the King. Now, in Benares, Jesus tarried many days and taught. Yeah, but have another refreshment. Thanks to anybody still watching. I'm just reading this so that the Aquarian Gospel of Jesus the Christ has been faithfully recorded and rendered truthfully. Because if I trip up on a word, I'll try and fix it. Jesus received news of the death of his father. He writes a letter to his mother. The letter, he sends it on his way by a merchant. One day, as Jesus stood beside the Ganges, busy with his work, a caravan returning from the west drew near, and one, approaching Jesus, said, we come to you just from your native land and bring unwelcome news. Your father is no more on earth. Your mother grieves, and none can comfort her. She wonders whether you are still alive or not. She longs to see you once again. And Jesus bowed his head in silent thought, and then he wrote what he wrote. This is the sum. My mother, noblest of womankind, a man just from my native land has brought me word that father is no more in flesh, and that you grieve and are disconsolate. My mother, all is well. It is well for father, and it is well for you. His work in this earth's ground is done, and it is nobly done. In all the works of life, men cannot charge him with deceit, dishonesty, nor wrong intent. Here in this round he finished many heavy tasks, and he has gone from hence prepared to solve the problems of the round of soul. Our Father God is with him there, as he was with him here, and there his angels guard his footsteps, lest he go astray. Why should you weep? Tears cannot conquer grief. There is no power in grief to mend a broken heart. The plan of grief is idleness. The busy soul can never grieve. It has no time for grief. When grief comes trooping through the heart, just lose yourself, plunge deep into the ministry of love, and grief is not. Yours is a ministry of love, and all the world is calling out for love. Then let the past go with the past. Rise from the cares of carnal things, and give your life for those who live. And if you lose your life in serving life, you will be sure to find it in the morning sun, the evening dews, in song of bird, in flowers, and in the stars of night. In just a little while, your problems of this earth's round will be solved, And when your sums are all worked out, it will all be pleasure unalloyed for you to enter wider fields of usefulness to solve the greater problems of the soul. Survive then, to be content, and it will come to you some day and bring you richer gifts in gold or precious stones. I'm sure that John will care for you, supplying all your needs, and I'm with you all the way, Yahushua. And by the hand of one, a merchant going to Jerusalem, he sent this letter on its way. Chapter 31. Brahmic priests are enraged because of Jesus' teaching and resolve to drive him from India. Lamars pleads for him. Priests employ a murderer to kill him. Lamars warns him and he flees to Nepal. The words and works of Jesus caused unrest through all the land. The common people were his friends, believed in him, and followed him in throngs. The priests and rulers were afraid of him. His very name sent terror to their hearts. He preached the brotherhood of life, the righteousness of equal rights, and taught the usefulness. Let me rephrase. Uselessness. Uselessness. I'm going to read this chapter again. Chapter 31, page 51, part 5. He shook the very sand on which the Brahmic system stood. He made the Brahmic idol seem... Sorry. That's my bad. I did stuff up. Let's go back to 4. Chapter 31, part 4. He preached the brotherhood of life, the righteousness of equal rights, and taught the uselessness of priests and sacrificial rites. 5. He shook the very sand on which the Brahmic system stood and made the Brahmic idols seem so small and sacrifice so fraught with sin that shrines and wheels of prayers were all forgot. The priests declared that if this Hebrew boy should tarry longer in the land, a revolution would occur. The common people would arise and kill the priests and tear the temples down. And so they sent a call abroad, and priests from every province came. Benares was on fire with Brahmic zeal. Lamars from the temple Jagannath, who knew the inner life of Jesus well, was in their midst and heard the rantings of their priests. And he stood forth and said, "My brother priests, take heed. Be careful what you do. This is a record-making day. The world is looking on. The very life of Brahmic thought is now on trial. If we are reason blind, if prejudice be king today, if we resort to beastly force and dye our hands in blood that may, in sight of Brahm, be innocent and pure, his vengeance may fall down upon us. This very rock on which we stand may burst beneath our feet, and our beloved priesthood and our laws and shrines will go into decay." But they would let him speak no more. The wrathful priest rushed up and beat him, spit upon him, called him a traitor, threw him bleeding to the street. And then confusion reigned. The priest became a mob. The sight of human blood led on to fiendish acts and called for more. The rulers, fearing war, sought Jesus, and they found him calmly teaching in the marketplace. They urged him to depart, that he might save his life, but he refused to go. And then the priest sought cause for his arrest, but he had done no crime. And when false charges were preferred, but when the soldiers went to bring him to the judgment hall, they were afraid because the people stood in his defense. The priests were baffled, and they resolved to take his life by stealth. They found a man who was a murderer by trade and sent him out one night to slay the object of their wrath. The mass heard about their plotting and their plans and sent a messenger to warn their friends, and Jesus hastened to depart. By night he left Benares, and with haste he journeyed to the north, and everywhere the farmers, merchants, and the suitors helped him on his way. And after many days he reached the mighty Himalayas, and in the city of Kapilvastu he abode. The priests of Buddha opened wide the temple doors for him. Chapter 32. Jesus and Bharata. Together they read the sacred books. Jesus takes exception to the Buddhist doctrine of evolution and reveals the true origin of man. Meets Vidyapiti, who becomes his co-laborer. Vidyapiti, that's a cool name. Among the Buddhist priests was one who saw lofty wisdom in the words that Jesus spoke. He was Bharata Arabo. Together Jesus and Bharata read the Jewish Psalms and prophets, read the Vedas and Avesta and the wisdom of Gautama. And as they read and talked about the possibilities of man, Bharata said, "Man is the marvel of the universe. He is part of everything, for he has been a living thing on every plane of life. Time was when man was not, and then he was a bit of formless substance in the moulds of time, and then a protoplast. By universal law, all things tend upward to a state of perfectness. The protoplast evolved, becoming worm, then reptile, bird, and beast, and then at last it reached the form of man. Now man himself is mind, and mind is here to gain perfection by experience, and mind is often manifest in fleshly form, and in the form best suited to its growth. So mind may manifest as worm, or bird, or beast, or man. The time will come when everything of life will be evolved into the state of perfect man. And after man is man, perfectedness, he will evolve to higher forms of life." And Jesus said, "Baras, Arabo, who taught you this?" Darwin. Sorry, I don't mean to bring my own words into this. And Jesus said, "Barata Arabo, who taught you this, that mind, which is the man, may manifest in flesh of beast, or mind, or creeping thing?" Bharata said, "From times which man remembers not, our priests have told us so, and so we know." And Jesus said, "Enlightened Arabo, are you a mastermind and do not know that man knows naught by being told?" Man may believe what others say, but thus he never knows. If man would know, he must himself be what he knows. Do you remember, Arabo, when you were ape, or bird, or worm? Now, if you have no better proving of your plea than that the priests have told you so, you do not know, you simply guessed. Regard not, then, what any man has said. Let us forget the flesh, and go with mind into the land of fleshless things. Mind never does forget. And backward through the ages, masterminds can trace themselves, and thus they know. Time never was when man was not. That which begins will have an end. If man was not, the time will come when he will not exist. From God's own record book we read, the triune God breathed forth, and 7 spirits stood before his face. The Hebrews call these 7 spirits Elohim. And these are they who, in their boundless power, created everything that is or was. These spirits of the triune God moved on the face of the boundless space, and 7 ethers were, and every ether had its form of life. These forms of life were but the thoughts of God, clothed in the substance of the ether planes. Men call these ether planes the planes of protoplast, of earth, of plant, of beast, of man, of angel, and of cherub. These planes, with all their teeming thoughts of God, are never seen by the eyes of man in flesh. They are composed of substance far too fine for fleshly eyes to see, and still they constitute the soul of things. And with the eyes of soul, all creatures see these ether planes and all the forms of life. With all forms of life on every plane of thoughts of God, all creatures think, and every creature is possessed of will, and in its measure has the power to choose. And in their native planes, all creatures are supplied with nourishment from the ethers of their planes. And so it was with every living thing until the will became a sluggish will, and then the ethers of the protoplast, the earth, the plant, the beast, the man, began to vibrate very slowly. The ethers all became more dense, and all the creatures of these planes were clothed with coarser garbs, the garbs of flesh, which men can see, and thus this coarser manifest, which men call physical, appeared. And this is what is called the fall of man. But man fell not alone, for protoplast and earth and plant and beast were all included in the fall. The angels and the cherubim fell not, their wills were ever strong, and so they held the ethers of their planes in harmony with God. Now when the ethers reached the rate of atmosphere, and all the creatures of these planes must get their food from the atmosphere, the conflict came, and then that which the finite man has called survival of the best became a law. The stronger of the bodies of the weaker manifests, and here is where the carnal law of evolution had its rise. And now man, in his utter shamelessness, strikes down and eats the beasts. The beast consumes the plant thrives on the earth absorbs the protoplast. In yonder kingdom of the soul, this carnal evolution is not known, and the great work of masterminds is to restore the heritage of man, to bring him back to the estate that he has lost, when he again will live upon the ethers of the native plane. The thoughts of God change not. The manifests of life on every plane unfold into perfection of their kind. And as the thoughts of God can never die, there is no death to any being of the seven ethers of the seven spirits of the triune God. And so, an earth is never plant, a beast, or bird, or creeping thing is never man. And man is not and cannot be a beast or bird or creeping thing. The time will come when all these seven manifests will be absorbed, and man and beast and plant and earth and protoplast will be redeemed. Bharata was amazed. The wisdom of the Jewish sage was revelation unto him. Now, Vidyapati, wisest of the Indian sages, chief of temple Kapavistu, heard Bharata speak to Jesus of the origin of man, and heard the answer of the Hebrew prophet, and he said, "You, priest of Kapavistu, hear me speak. We stand today upon a crest of time. 6 times ago a master soul was born, and gave a glory light to man, and now a master sage stands here in temple Kapavistu. This Hebrew prophet is the rising star of wisdom, day of life. He brings to us a knowledge of the secret things of God, and all the world will hear his words, will heed his words, and glorify his name. You priests of temple Kapavistu, stay, be still and listen when he speaks. He's the living oracle of God." And all the priests gave thanks and praised the Buddha of enlightenment. I imagine this will be chapter 33. Chapter 33. Imagine correct. Chapter 33. Jesus teaches the common people how to spring, tells them how to attain unto happiness. What? Wrong. In silent meditation, Jesus sat beside a flowing spring. It was a holy day, and many people of the servant caste were near the place. A holy day. And Jesus saw the hard-drawn lines of toil on every brow, in every hand. There was no look of joy in any face. Not one of the group could think of anything but toil. And Jesus spoke to one and said, "Why are you all so sad? Have you no happiness in life?" The man replied, "We scarcely know the meaning of that word. We toil to live and hope for nothing else but toil. And bless the day when we can cease our toil and lay us down to rest in Buddha's city of the dead." And Jesus' heart was stirred with pity and with love for these poor toilers. And he said, "Toil should not make a person sad. Men should be happiest when they toil. When hope and love are back of toil, then all of life is fulfilled with joy and peace. And this is heaven. Do you not know that such a heaven is for you?" The man replied, "Of heaven we have heard, and it is so far away, and we must live so many lives before we reach that place." And Jesus said, "My brother, man, your thoughts are wrong. Your heaven is not far away, and it is not a place of meats and bounds. It is not a country that will be reached. It is a state of mind. God never made a heaven for man. He never made a hell. We are creators, and we make our own. Now, cease to seek for heaven in the sky. Just open up the windows of your hearts, and, like a flood of light, heaven will come and bring a boundless joy. Then toil will be no more cruel task." The people are amazed and gather close to hear this strange young master speak, imploring him to tell them more about the Father God, about the heaven that men can make on earth, and about the boundless joy. And Jesus spoke a parable. He said, "A certain man possessed a field. The soil was hard and poor. By constant toil, he scarcely could provide enough of food to keep his family from want. One day, a miner who could see beneath the soil, in passing on his way, saw this poor man in his unfruitful field. He called the weary toiler, and he said, 'My brother, know you not that just below the surface of your barren field rich treasures lie concealed? You'll plough and sow and reap in scanty way. Day by day you tread upon a mine of gold and precious stones. This wealth lies not upon the surface of the ground, but if you will but dig away the rocky soil and delve down deep into the earth, you will no longer till the soil for naught.' The man believed. 'The miner surely knows,' he said, 'and I will find the treasures hidden in my field.' And then he dug away the rocky soil, and deep down in the earth he found a mine of gold. And Jesus said, 'The sons of men are toiling hard on desert plains and burning sands and rocky soils, and doing what their fathers did, not dreaming they can do aught else. Behold, a master comes and tells them of a hidden wealth, that underneath the rocky soil of carnal things are treasures that no man can count, that in the heart the richest gems abound, that he who wills may open up the door and find them all.' Then the people said, 'Make known to us the way that we may find the wealth that lies within the heart.' And Jesus opened up the way, and toil saw another side of life, and toil became a joy." Chapter 34. The Jubilee in Kapavistu. Jesus teaches in the plaza and all the people are astonished. He relates the parable of the unkept vineyard and the vine dresser. The priests are angered by his words. How often is it that the priests are angered by our words? So I will continue. It was a gala day in sacred Kapavistu. A throng of Buddhist worshippers had met to celebrate the Jubilee. And priests and masters from all parts of India were there. They taught. They embellished little truth with many words. And Jesus went into an ancient plaza and he taught. He spoke of Father, Mother, God. He told about the brotherhood of life. The priests and all the people were astounded at his words and said, "Is this not Buddha come again in flesh?" No other one could speak with such simplicity and power. And Jesus spoke a parable. He said, "There's a vineyard all unkept. The vines were high, the growth of leaves and branches great. The leaves were broad and shut the sunlight from the vines. The grapes were sour and few and small. The pruner came with a sharp knife. He cut off every branch, and not a leaf remained, just root and stalk, but nothing more. The busy neighbours came with one accord and were amazed, and said to him, who pruned, 'You foolish man, the vineyard is despoiled. Such desolation. There is no beauty left, and when the harvest time shall come, the gatherers will find no fruit.' The pruner said, 'Content yourselves with what you think. Come again at harvest time and see.' And when the harvest time came on, the busy neighbours came again, and they were surprised. The naked stalks had put forth branch and leaf, and every cluster of delicious grapes weighted every branch to earth. The gatherers rejoiced as day by day they carried their rich riches to the press. Behold, the vineyard of the Lord, the earth is spread with human vines. The gorgeous forms and rights of men are branches, and their words of leaves. And these have grown to such great height that sunlight can no longer reach the heart. There is no fruit. Behold, the pruner comes, and with a two-edged knife he cuts away the branches and the leaves of words, and naught is left but unclothed stalks of human life. The priests, in their pompous show, rebuke the pruner and would stay him in his work. They see no beauty in the stalks of human life, no promises of fruit. The harvest time will come, and they who scorned the pruner will look on again and be amazed, for they will see the human stalks that seem so lifeless, bending low with precious fruit. And they will hear the harvesters rejoice, because the harvest is so great. The priests were not well pleased with Jesus' words, but they rebuked him not. They feared the multitude. Chapter 35. Jesus and the Vidya party consider the words of the incoming age of the world. The Indian sage and Jesus often met and talked about the needs of nations and of men, about the sacred doctrines, forms, and rites best suited to the coming age. One day they sat together in a mountain pass, and Jesus said, "The coming age will surely not require priests and shrines and sacrifice of life. There is no power in sacrifice of bird or beast. There is no power in sacrifice of beast or bird to help a man to holy life." And Vidyapati said, "All forms and rites are symbols of the things that man must do within the temple of the soul. The Holy One requires man to give his life in willing sacrifice for men, and all the so-called offerings on altars and on shrines that have been made since time began were made to teach man how to give himself to save his brother man. For man can never save himself except he lives his life in saving other men. The perfect age will not require forms and rites and carnal sacrifice. The coming age is not the perfect age, and men will call for object lessons and symbolic rites. And in the great religion you shall introduce to men some simple rites of washings and remembrances will be required, but cruel sacrifice of animals and birds and gods require not. And Jesus said, our God must loathe the tinsel show of priests and priestly things. When men array themselves in showy garbs to indicate that they are servants of the gods and strut about like gaudy birds to be admired by men because of piety or any other thing, the Holy One must surely turn away in sheer disgust. All people are alike. The servants of our Father God are kings and priests. Will not the coming age demand complete destruction of the priestly caste, as well as every other caste, and inequality among the sons of men? And Vidyapati said, the coming age is not the age of spirit life, and men will pride themselves in wearing priestly robes and chanting pious chants to advertise themselves as saints. The simple rites that you will introduce will be extolled by those who follow you, until the sacred services of the age will far outshine the gorgeousness of the priestly service of the Brahmic age. This is the problem. Men must not wear themselves in special garbs to advertise their piety. That I might even call this a night. I can't remember where I left my glasses. But yeah, Major Flat D was the last one to say good night. Absolutely. Let me them down there. Well, I'll continue reading the rest of this book in the morning. Until then, wish you all well. And, I don't even want to say those words. Have a happy Easter. To me, that's insulting. It's go and celebrate the crucifixion of Christ and be happy about it. Eat chocolate eggs. Doesn't work for me. Doesn't work. Anyway, I thought by about this length of time I would have had like a heap of trolls that normally like they come along so I can just see some of your freaking comments. And so it seems I've silenced you all. Yay me. I can send the keyboard now. So yeah, so those who joined me the other day, I was on the non-sequitur show. What's he calls himself? Constable's Conspiracy. And yet the whole time he was addressing me, challenging me, trying to get me onto that show. It was Professor Games. And he even made a video himself, Professor Games. which I did spend some time, I think that was yesterday, responding to and rebuking him. Professor Games, Constable, Conspiracy. All of you. I'm open to debate. I'll open to chat anything. But hey, truth is truth. If you can prove that we live on this spinning ball in outer space, hey, I'm all ears. Prove it to me. But you can't. And you know why you can't? Because your religious, superstitious, ridiculous belief is a load of shite. An absolute load of shite. Step outside. Look how still the earth is. It is flat and stationary. And the heavenly bodies revolve around above us. As simple as that. Have a good one. See you later. Let me find the way to get